You are now entering Maximum Driftcast, the only drifting podcast hosted by a Spanish soccer mom, a 30-year-old silver-haired fox going on 60, and finally, a 200-pound bowl of spaghetti with chimichanga arms.
The champions, we are the champions.
Welcome to Maximum Driftcast, guys. We are back once again. Here we are, the whole team. We have on the left, weighing 350 pounds, chimichanga arms, black hat, big mustache, Corey, the horse, Hosford. And on the right side,
I'm gonna try not to talk this whole episode, but talk in tongues. This is what I call tongue Sam.
and on the right side, we have the young but old-looking, but always smiley, from Poland, California, Samuel, the Apache. Now then,
those are really good intros.
it was so bad.
Are you Apache, Sam? Are you
He's
Apache Indian?
he's like
or-
50%
No.
Cherokee. Look at him. He's
I'm Choctaw.
Chief Jeep Cherokee.
Jeep Cherokee. Nice.
I'm a Jeep Cherokee engine.
Hey guys, are you sitting next to each other?
Yeah, me
Yep.
and Sam. I moved to
anyways.
Venice.
We were crawling around in the hot tub earlier, and we found this gigantic hot dog behind us, and now we're sitting in front of it. We're gonna eat it right after the show. So that's the plan.
Can you hug each other?
I can
Yep.
kiss Sam. Wait, hold on. You're on this side.
Oh my God, Sam's face disappeared in a second. But I'm kind of glad that was better.
Oops, I went the wrong way. Oh, there it is. Oh yeah, I'm watching.
Perfect.
What has our lives come to? I love it.
So I was gone last week. I was in the mountainous region of Colorado,
Oh,
and
nice.
yeah, did a bunch of snap-on shoots out there. But there was no reception, so I couldn't get enough internet to be on the show, which was a bummer. It was for the best, as I was just saying to Corey before the show, is that I really enjoyed listening to an episode, so that's cool. It was very informative to listen to K Wells, and but I have so many questions about the electric car stuff, and you guys definitely touched on it a lot to point out like this could really change the sport a whole bunch. But hopefully we'll talk to Napoleon Racing pretty soon here and talk about their car.
Before we go and run to the chatter, Sam, did you guys even work? I saw you guys like snowboarding, flying drones indoors. I think you went and got Jared while he was pooping.
Mm-hmm. No, but it was a ton of work. I don't know if you guys have ever worked at 13,000 feet before.
It sucks.
It's rough. We were all dying. So yeah, we're out there shooting a couple episodes. One with some snowmobiles. So there's a place called Vogue Performance, and they're like one of the premier snowmobile modifiers. And those things are they're fucking insane. I got to ride one around a little bit. It is physically exhausting. I don't know how Larry the Entire does it. It's tough, but I got new respect for Larry now. I still sent it. It was not easy, but seeing Jared, I got a really good video of Jared riding one with his ass crack hanging out. I don't think he knows about that yet. Sorry, Jared.
That's a dual exhaust.
Yep.
Yep.
and then we shot the snow groomers at a place called Winter Park, which is pretty cool. So we had to wake up at 3 a.m. and went to the top of the mountain, and it was like 15 degrees, which is pretty warm for up there with 30-mile-an-hour wind, which was kind of rough. And I didn't have proper boots, so my feet were frozen and wet. But that was a bummer. But it was a good time. We also got in some boarding, and I'm very happy to be back at sea level.
I shot Jared a message. He sent me, or he posted on his Instagram story, you sitting next to him on the ski lift. And I said something, and he didn't respond because I think he may have got offended by what I said.
It's real easy to offend Jared, but what he said.
Yeah, I don't know. Let me see if I can pull it up. Let's see. I said something about you looking like a cyborg, or how do you guys kiss with Sam wearing that ski mask over his face? Like something like that. But yeah, he didn't respond. So whatever. You guys have fun without us. Me and Paco did a show together, dude, and it was perfect.
Yeah, it was good. I was working most of that time. There's just 2 days of snowboarding, which I haven't done in like 4 years, and it was awesome.
Then it looks like you guys got invaded by dogs.
dogs.
At
RS
race
today.
service. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a gigantic bulldog named Boss, and he's ridiculous. And
Not to cut you off, Sam, but Paul Velichkov wanted to ask a question in YouTube chat.
Already.
He goes, Sam, did you kill a baby mountain lion?
no, there's about 15 full-grown adults though that I shot with a crossbow.
You're supposed to kill him, but barehanded.
No bears up there, Paco. But
No, he barebacked him, he said.
yeah,
There's 15 adults I barebacked with a bow and arrow.
a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
Bone.
So, hey, Sam, when you go on these trips with Jared and all these other drift dudes, because was Jacob Agajani in there?
Yeah, I had Jacob and James.
And you had Andy.
Yep, Andy wanted to be a part of
You
this.
had Jared.
Mm-hmm.
You had yourself.
Mm-hmm.
For people that don't know, wasn't Jacob Vaughn and Forsberg's old, what is it called?
Manager?
Manager, yes.
Yes, and Turk.
So you're-
and he's
and
still
Turk. He still is Turks. But the thing is, you're surrounded by these guys that were or maybe still be heavily involved with drifting. Do you guys ever talk about drifting when you're on these trips, or is it like, we're just enjoying our
Not
vacation?
very often anymore, surprisingly. It's kind of that's work. It's other work. We do talk about other work a lot, but yeah, drifting is less the topic of conversation because we live, eat, breathe, die it most of the time. But yeah, I got to talk drifting with my friends on the podcast. Oh wait, I didn't because
No, you
there
didn't.
was no reception. There was an avalanche. I made it like to the front page of Reddit. There was like an avalanche just 10 feet,
Was it
not 10,
a
10
Chevy?
miles down the road.
Chevy
from-
Avalanche?
Yeah, Chevy Avalanche. It was beautiful. It was all black. There's a bunch of Del Taco wrappers in the back. It was Paco's Avalanche.
No, I actually go to Taco Bell too, Sam.
I know you're a Taco Bell boy.
So, yep.
Can I talk about the electric car now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's ask your questions, or what do you feel we missed out on the electric car?
Oh,
clip?
I haven't finished the episode yet, unfortunately, because I've just been listening to it while driving. But one thing that I thought Kevin breezed over that I really wanted to, that I was like pulling out my hair listening to it, is he's saying like, you can't really tune the electric cars like you think you would, which blows my mind because maybe, I'm not saying that that's not true necessarily, but as some of you saw, like I've been getting into FPV drone stuff a little bit, and literally $100 drone with free software can tune electric throttle maps very, very easily and plainly to the point where even I understand what I'm doing. So you can literally say at throttle position 10%, I will get this much power. At throttle position 50%, I will get this much power, and I can limit it so full throttle. And in this case, let's say it's an accelerator in a car.
Second.
Let's say that it's an accelerator in the car. I can tell it to make it so it only gives me 80% of maximum torque. I could say that I want maximum torque at 15%. I could say that at 15%, I want my torque to increase at this ratio. Not in the drone because the drone just has one.
Sam, that's cheating.
I know, but I'm
Hold
just
on
saying,
a second. This is a
it's
very
super easy on a $100 race drone with free software to map throttle input to deliver power.
Okay,
and give
hold on.
yourself almost literal traction control.
And
So it's like
you can. And how far out does your drone fly? The thing flies what it could fly. You have the crossfire and all that shit on it.
Not yet, but I mean these
Okay,
little ones that have very cheap technology can fly easily 100 yards.
Okay, so if you're easily able to manipulate all these things on the fly, what makes you think you can do it remotely if you're already doing it?
Oh yeah, I mean you're doing it in the drone, at least you're doing it like as a pre-programmed thing and then setting it as a setting. But even the drone has multiple profiles. You can say like I've got this one profile for gentle flying, I've got this profile for hardcore, and I've got this profile that has different stability controls on it. And then I even think about remotely. Yeah, you could have a dude in the stand
think
that's
what
changing
Corey-
your profile in real time.
I think what Corey's talking about is like, imagine this same thing on a race car. You can remotely tune it, like like this turn I want
Oh, absolutely.
this
You
program,
could-
and then as soon
I
as
mean,
you,
but
you go to the next turn, you change to the next program where full throttle only means 30% or whatever.
yeah, you don't even need someone remotely to do that. You would assume that you could just run a map doing that. But again, maybe he's got it fully dialed, and maybe it is not adjustable from the Tesla factory model, assuming that's what the Napoleon guys are using. But yeah, we definitely got to get him on the show. But I think that, at least from what I heard of that section of the show, Kevin was definitely downplaying the possibilities of tuning on this, unless, of course, it is fully locked up, like he says. But, man, I can't believe that it is because just such cheap drone freeware has the ability to map throttle input. and decide how much power is going down based off of just throttle alone, which you could argue that you can map that out on a regular cable throttle body via the ECU, but not really, not to this
No.
extent, I think.
I don't think so. I think you're fine-tuned. I think that's the whole advantage of going electric is the ability to fine-tune everything to such a smaller degree.
Well, and people with nitrous step that up too. So, you have steps in nitrous systems and saying that I want this much of the bottle spraying at this throttle and so on.
But
it's
think
still...
about the less likelihood of a risk. You're not going to explode an engine.
Oh, yeah.
Like you know what I mean? So it's like, oh, we added a little too much there. Sorry about that. It's not, but if you were to do that, there's so many there's 4 or 5 other working variables in making that adjustment on a car. A gas-powered car, combustion car, more so than an electric car. So,
and
a very
another
good question, Sam. Damn it!
Another aspect he was mentioning. I mean, you guys were in the moment. I was, just listening to the conversation, knowing that I can't interrupt y'all, which you guys did a great job again, by the way. Kevin was saying that most drivers get a pretty perfect 50-50 weight balance, anyways. But we didn't really talk about how low in the car the batteries are. The primary weight source in the car is now going to be much lower than any other. Other gasoline powered, every other car on the grid. So I don't know how that exactly changes everything. I know typically in racing you want the lowest center of gravity possible. So I'm curious to see. I'm really curious to see how this car is going to move. And Kevin also mentioned that like the Tesla Model S P1000 P100 or whatever, the super fast one that has 2 motors, dual motor at 400-ish horsepower torque each. This is just running one of those. So that's pretty crazy that, on the Tesla, you have one motor for the front, one motor for the rear, both doing 400 to 500 horsepower in torque. This car is just running one of those. Like, it's crazy. It's just going to have 400 to 500 horsepower. Is it going to look as fast as 800 because of power delivery? And is there a way that they could put 2 batteries just to the rear wheels or 2 motors just to the rear wheels? Maybe like 1 motor per wheel. And if they can do 1 motor per wheel, the power from 1 motor to each wheel, like then that's another form of traction as well. Like there's such questions here, and I really hope that they are covering them. I'm sure that they are thinking about it, but I don't think that this car is going to break FD this year because it sounds like it might not have a top 5 driver in it. Not to say that someone isn't capable of shaping stuff up, but I imagine this car makes a debut and people are going to start seeing the technology. You're going to have Papa Mama Kisses looking at it. You're going to have the best teams looking at how to implement this technology. And we very much could be looking at the birth of the next drift crisis if it's not managed 100% correctly. And I'm sure
it's called the drift apocalypse.
I don't know if you made it that far in the episode, but Kevin Wells said that drivetrain package, including the engine battery, is about 15 grand or 20 grand.
Which is awesome. I immediately thought like, hey, how do I start doing that on my side? And like maybe that's it. After I blow up my SR, my drift car, like what do I put in it next? Maybe
you put in a 2JZ. You put in a 2JZ.
Yeah. And that was the final point I had on this before we shut down the show and don't talk to any guests, is I kind of wish that they were doing this in a more proven chassis, because if they're doing it in S14, we know exactly how the car is supposed to look, because some of the best drivers in the series all drive S chassis. So if they put this whole setup in an S car, we could really see the power to weight dynamics, the thrust, the throttle, everything about how it's going to move compared to an already established chassis and car. But we're putting in a Camaro, and Camaros have had poor showing in FD so far. I feel like, of course, Tyler McQuarrie did okay at times, but it was the Camaro's never been a good-looking FD car on track. It's always been a pig. It's always moved poorly.
I think Conrad did good, but it just wasn't consistent. So it's
Conrad.
Yeah, it's probably also a matter of lightning. How you say that?
Lightweighting
the car a little bit more, and maybe with an electric drivetrain, it's probably gonna lose a lot of weight.
There's another factor too, though. What year is that Camaro they're going to put that electric motor in?
Brand new.
Then that's based on the ATS chassis. Remember when Taylor Hall was on the show? He was talking about the Camaro and the Cadillac ATS had almost the same chassis, I think.
Which
so
is
it's different from the previous
lighter,
Camaros.
Just an even lighter platform.
It's a better platform. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I mean, it's still, the cars when I see them on the road still look like big beasts of cars. So, I mean, I'm just so curious to see how it's going to move. I really hope that it does well, but I really don't want it to do too well to the point where it changes everything. And maybe in a few years we're going to have like Formula One. I don't know if it's a good analogy, but they have the e-racing league because we kind of we might need to differentiate them because they're going to run so well or so differently that it's not going to be competitive. I don't know. There's so many questions I have that can't be answered until we actually see how this unfolds. And finally, one more writing thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Comment on yours. What were we going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, and we find out in 30 days as we are 1 month away from the opening event.
It's coming up. It's coming up real
and
fast.
you're seeing Instagram, for you guys that are paying attention on Instagram. Obviously, you see Matt Field finishing the Corvette. They're finishing Pat Gooden's car, which goes off the wrap tomorrow. James Dean and Peter start testing in a week or two. Dean Kearney's testing this weekend. A lot of the guys are actually getting going well before Long Beach, and I want to say 30 days is well before Long Beach, even though yes, it may not. But for most of them, they're shaking down at Long Beach. So
in the past, it seems to be people are testing at Willow the Thursday or the Wednesday, whenever before FD. And it's good to see people getting their cars together. And you guys wrapped it up pretty well at the beginning of the show. Last show is just talking about it's interesting to see. Hopefully Forsberg is back. He's got a VR motor. We're going to see RTR in there, just further refining everything. This is already shaping up to be a very exciting year. We say that every year, but it's really exciting. And we are at the end of the tunnel with the FD break. It's the end is near, and the drifting is starting again very, very soon.
Yeah, and once again, we got confirmations of Forrest Wayne coming back, of Justin Pollock redoing his whole car. You got a lot of guys that took the time, and rather than building a new chassis from scratch, it looks like they're just making theirs better, which in most cases that we've talked about is it's always nice to kind of have a baseline on what you did before rather than jumping from chassis to chassis. And it seems like a lot of the people, other than a few, may be going to different chassis. Obviously, Honadell staying in the S14, he was going to jump for the BMW. That might be a benefit to him. You know what I mean? And I think the BMW is honestly better in Dylan's hands in the sense that Dylan is such a good builder and fabricator that he's going to be more in tune.
That could dedicate the time to it.
But I think he's going to be more in tune with that car rather than Huddy just building it and giving it to Alec. You know what I mean? So I think
it's also going to have Forsberg's knowledge and setup behind it as well, because they're still teammates, of course, in a way.
Teammates. Any new teammates this year? Alec Honadell shared that he got this massive rig, so he's going to be alone, from what I heard. You have, do you know if Turk and Forsberg are going to be together?
I don't know the exact dynamic of that. I mean, yes, they are together as partners in life. I don't know what happens behind the scenes, but they seem very close, of course.
Sounds like Chelsea and Vaughn are still together for this year.
Mm-hmm. They're in love.
You got... Who else is together? I want to say we had more teams then. Oh, obviously the Worthhouse guys are going to be together.
Odie and Matt.
See. What's that?
We had June Meg
Odie
and Nick
Matt.
Hogan. Did you hear about that one, Corey?
June Meg and Nick Hogan.
Yeah,
I heard they're actually going to. But aren't they doing in like a sidecar or something?
Yeah, it's going to be a side hack. It's kind of weird. They're kind of, Kevin forgot to mention that along with an electric car, they're going to have a 3-wheel side hack. So it's like a motorcycle with a sidecar, and that's going to be the Hogan Meg team. It's going to be really interesting. I got
90% confirmation that Kristaps is not coming back. I don't want to totally let.
No way.
Yeah.
That would be the worst news I've ever heard.
Yeah,
he's probably my favorite driver in FD right now. I hope that's not
I
true.
got a 90% confirmation that he won't be back this year.
Who told you that?
I tuned into TMZ. I've been working closely with TMZ, and they spilled the beans. But it just seems like, from my understanding, they want to spend some time and really develop and grow HGK to a much bigger, larger platform, and that it's going to be consuming most of his time. So
I hate that.
Yep. Trying to make money, man. It's expecting more.
Yeah,
but
because as we've said in the past, HGK, despite having one of the most well-built cars and having one of the retail-wise expensive cars, it's very much a grassroots team in their operation. It's like 3 guys out there, and they
need a bigger team.
Yeah. But that all costs money, which makes sense that they're going to sit a season out and do it, because I know Kristaps loves the sport and loves FD. So I hope that if that is true, that he'll be back very soon after he regroups.
I'm scrolling through. I'm scrolling through the ladder for last year. Peter Forsberg, Pollock, Turk, Matt Field. We know what he's doing. We know what Denofa's doing. Odie, he was just testing the S14 at Willow, so he got an early start. Dai was testing today, and looks like Kojima created new suspension for the car, which Kojima's always developing something. We got Gucci. Gucci's one that we need to talk to because I heard some inner workings with Gucci that are going on that we definitely need to figure out. But he is going to be running his 8.6, and he did mention on his Instagram he's going to be running. Wang's confirmed he's going to be running. Gittins confirmed. Kristaps, Hanadel back in the S14. S is confirmed back in the BMW. Kaufman in the S13. Castro seems like he's...
Do you have like a list that you made, a spreadsheet?
I'm just going through and reading it in order. Jeff Jones is confirmed. Did you notice Jeff Jones is building his S13? S14? I don't know what it is. Jeff Jones is building another car, and rumor is some Pro 2 driver is going to be driving it.
Damn,
So Jeff Jones
No more
might
370?
be...
Why?
No, Jeff Jones will be driving 370, but he has another car that he's renting out to another Pro 2 driver.
Team.
And it's pink. And he's been giving hints on his Instagram. And if you guys haven't noticed, then pay attention to what Jeff is doing with that car because he's going to be, it seems like he's building that car for a Pro 2 driver. So pay attention to Jones. Dirk Stratton. Let me finish this list here real quick. Dirk Stratton finishing the Corvette. He was just putting over fenders on the car yesterday, wrapping up. He seems stoked on that. I haven't seen much from Matt Van Kirk. He seems like he's been in Australia driving a lot. I have not heard much from him, but he's been in Australia for quite some time.
Hey man, don't be a Matt Van Jerk.
Yeah.
Come. Sorry,
So we have a 2 Cadillac car team. We have Taylor Hall and
Yep, that's Austin Meeks.
and Austin Meeks both together, both Cadillac ATSs.
Yep. Okay, we got so here. Let's look at this. Dan Burkett, Rad Dan back on the Supra. He's doing a livery release this week. He just finished.
I bet it's going to be blue.
I bet it's going to be a Supra and it's going to be blue. Dean Kearney's testing now. I don't know what Toguchi's doing, but Jerry Yang, the team owner, it looks like he's been building an S15 as well.
I think they're gonna be teaming up like Jerry Yang and Taguchi at the same time.
Hold on, say that name again, Paco.
Jerry Yang.
Jerry who?
Okay. You said it better that time.
Jerry Yang.
So Jerry Yang is
Jerry
the team
Yang.
owner for Taguchi.
Yeah, he's running our S15 LC panels and.
So what is he doing with the GTR?
I think it's still Taguchi's car.
Then what are they doing with the S15?
I think Jerry's gonna drive it.
NFD?
Isn't he licensed?
No.
Or do you have
Jerry
another?
Yang? He's just the team owner.
I thought he was licensed. Maybe I'm confused. But maybe they have another driver.
Well, that's what we're asking. You gave them fenders. What did they tell you?
That the car is gonna be on FD.
It's S15, and that's the old Rocket Bunny car. Who drove the old Rocket Bunny car? It was driven in Pro 2, and that was driven by, guys in YouTube, help me with this. Rocket Bunny S15, Japanese driver. He was actually one of the more entertaining drivers. I remember him in Texas, Sam. Do you remember him? He was the dude that had the big ear. He made top 32 or top 16. He pulled out the big ear. You remember that?
No.
Who was that? Here, let me see.
I missed Texas this last year.
No, it was 2 years ago, Bunny. S15.
Well, you're talking about
Kenji Yamanaka.
Wait.
Kenji Yamanaka drove it.
Okay. No.
And had the V8 in it. Yep, Kenji Yamanaka. So he was driving the old S15, but if Jerry Yang's in a crew for 2 cars, and they ran out of last year, they ran out of the Keeley's rig, which means the Keeley's rig is going to be stacked because they have a lot of drivers, new drivers this year. So I wonder
Corey's got a bunch of photographs and then pins and string connected them all over his wall.
Federico Sharifo is supposed to be coming back in the Ferrari.
Woo!
Yeah, it sounds like he's making some big changes, and there's some rumors on what he's doing next year as far as switching brands and companies and tires, and so expect Federico in the Ferrari back. The shorter guys only have a few left. Kevin Lawrence looks like
if we want to try to get our guests coming in very soon,
I'm going to roll right into it. Watch this. Kevin Lawrence looks like he's going to be making the run, which would be awesome. Alex Hillebrand is already confirmed with RTS. Rick, that he's going to be running the BMW again with that new sequential transmission that Rick's been producing. Farouk Kuge, I've heard that Farouk may not be coming back. That is 90% confirmed. Yes, that's pretty solid. And then the last few you mentioned, Austin Meeks, Taylor Hall, they're teaming up with ATS. Ryan Literal, full season with the CoreWorks 350Z, and then Cameron Moore, which he may only run select rounds. So that was the whole field. But there's one person I forgot. Frick, what's his name? He's from Norway, right? And he used to drive the 350Z. Kenny.
No,
Kenny
Mohan is gone
no,
forever.
Kenny, no man.
No, there was a
We forgot.
guy.
Not somebody.
No, Jared called him the dentist. He was
The dentist.
Yeah, Kenny the dentist. No, maybe he was the mentalist because he does magic.
Dennis the Menace, the mean man.
Dennis the mean tits. It was mean tits.
The man.
Darren Mean Tits.
Yeah, Darren Mean Tits. I'm so happy that we're finally bringing you my favorite driver from down under, Darren Mean Tits. He's a very special friend to the show and to my heart.
Yeah, he's such a good guy. I wonder if we can have a chance to ever speak with him. But I wish we can get somebody like that on the phone.
Oh, someone's butting.
Somebody trying to hack
Somebody's
our phone system?
eavesdropping. Who is this? Identify yourself.
This would be the menace, not the dentist.
Oh.
And I heard you guys talking about, electric cars. I would rather talk about Doritos, some triangles. I've got my own alternative
My
power plants.
man.
Is this not Darren Mean Tits?
That's close.
Well, I mean, from what I've heard, though, is that all our alternative power plants are reliable and have torque.
Mm-hmm.
Mine's more like a jet engine. You got to get it lit off. It's very important. It's turbo and nitro spaced with a little bit of potentially ethanol in there as well.
Have we ever talked to you on the show, Darren? I forget. I know we've been trying for what feels like years now, but have you talked to us previous to that?
No.
What the hell?
This is literally the only Pro 1 driver that's been in the sport the last 3 years that we have not spoken to.
It's kind of weird, right?
Yeah, well, maybe get better at communication, my dog. I'm kidding. No, it's not your fault. We've tried many times. But it just always ends up poorly. But we're very pumped to finally have you on the show today. We're talking to Kyle, what was it?
The mainstream.
The Maine Coon. Kyle, the Maine Coon Mohan. That's right.
He just laughed. He's like, okay, that's a bad joke. He hang up. All right.
I don't have a video on Kyle. Do you guys have video on Kyle?
Yeah, I'm trying to work on it here. For some reason, camera's not happy.
It's
There it
like
is.
You go back to Doritos.
Hey.
There's the man.
I lost an Apex seal already. What can I say?
Hey, Corey's been blowing out his seals all week here.
Yeah, you've been blowing seals all week, Sam. So like the sea creature.
Oh, I thought you meant the
No,
Ninedos
no,
R&B
no.
artist.
No. Oh, him too.
Yeah,
Both of them.
you can kiss my rose if you know what I mean.
Kyle Mohan.
Mohan.
Thank you. I call him Mohan because it's a hybrid. He's a pig hybrid, human hybrid.
I did actually confuse him and Kenny Mohan like 7 years ago, as bad as I now confuse Dai and Gucci. So it's been a hard time for me with a lot of these drivers.
Yeah, I like that intro. I mean, there's been so many times it's been announced crossed between me and Kenny through the years, and always made me laugh. So I thought that was good. You had me laughing on the intro.
Awesome. Kyle, do you have someone listening to the show in the background in your house? Because I can kind of hear it.
My bad.
No, it's all good.
So this is the first time for you being on the show. There's little bugs.
You might not understand a lot of our.
The second time will be easy. We've only been doing this for 3 years, and so I know.
Not good with computers,
You might not understand a lot of our traditions. Like usually, the first thing that we'll do is the guest will take off his shirt and pour whiskey on his head.
Yep, that's the truth.
So.
Oh, cheers.
Salud,
senor. What are you drinking, buddy?
Ethanol. It's just 40 proof.
Oh, nice.
Hey, you got a gasoline sponsor? Is that what you're doing right now? Are you doing a bit?
Bingo.
Hey.
Damn.
So you running corn in that Rotang of yours or what?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been running ethanol for actually quite a few years, and the sponsorship on the car, American Ethanol. If you look at what we had on the car last year, you're going to see a lot of those familiar partners coming back this year, and they've been a massive help to us for multiple years. And yeah, I love the fact that it's a sustainable fuel. It's a high octane. My motor runs cool. We can run a ton of boost, a ton of nitrous, and it's making my motor more reliable. So last year, one motor all season long.
I specifically like standing behind ethanol cars on dyno days because it burns my nostrils in a very special way.
It burns nostrils, throat,
Burns
esophagus,
nostrils.
and lungs all together at once. It's very nice.
So I'm kind of excited, Kyle. We usually don't get to do this segment anymore because we've pretty much talked to everyone except for when we talked to Pro 2 guys. But let's go back to the roots, man. I mean, we haven't had you on the show. We don't know anything about you.
Oh, man.
Tell me about the night that you were conceived.
That's actually funny. I think my dad was at a Super Bowl party, and there was no expectance of me. I was early, and so I think he had to rush to the hospital. And I was early. I was excited. I was already in a race, and he might have showed up with the dog and left the car in the front of the hospital.
Right.
There's some good stories back there too. So that's the beginning. It was a rush from the beginning. But I started drifting. A lot of people don't know it, but it was with around the same time as Gucci and Alex Pfeiffer and Dai Yoshihara. A lot of the guys that started within the West Coast originally. And I just started with my professional license a little bit afterwards. I had to build a car, but I've been around in Formula Drift for quite a few years, and I feel very fortunate to have been with professional drifting this long.
What year did you start in FD?
So there's some debate. The first event I ran, they didn't actually enter my name into Formula D. It was another company that I ran their car. So on the books, I'm not actually in Formula Drift's logs. But
Really?
I believe it was the first year at Irwindale, and I ran for a suspension company that was infamous in drifting. And it was because their driver basically walked out of the seat, and they pitched me a helmet, and I hopped in the car. But I don't think I've really told Formula D that. But yeah, and
Which
then that
car
kind
was
of
that?
gave me the bug. It was a white car that had some nice colors on it. It was a 240, and it was a suspension company that is no longer in Southern California. That was maybe JDM.
Might be called JIC.
Yeah, yes, that might have been it. I think. Yeah. But I had great times with them. They were the ones that really gave me my first professional ride, and I had done a lot of D1 qualifiers, done a lot of drifting, a lot of drift days. I was a coach at Drift Day with Moto Miwa and Gucci and a couple other guys. And I was struggling to really get a pro license. Just the car I had wasn't that powerful compared to some of the other cars. And JIC gave me the chance. And I traveled with them for about a half a season. And Andy Yen was actually on the team around the same time as well. It was really good times.
That's why you always have wild success on the grid, is because Andy Yen was your best friend.
I've always wondered if it was the opposite.
Probably. Wait, so you say the D1 Drift Day? You're talking about the D1 Drift Day, the one that started drifting in America? Yeah.
So I think it was some of the first import show-offs with Falcon, RSR, Drift Day, Drift Festival, Irwindale. I was at the majority of those events, and then I actually worked staff because I couldn't get a license at the first D1 event. And then I drove or tried to qualify at the second D1 event, and I think the motor. I was running a 240. It dropped valves. I had motor problems back then. It didn't matter whether it was pistons or rotaries or anything. I seemed to be able to blow them up equally.
No, I was, I've made the jokes before on my own series and throughout this show, pooping on rotaries. But then in talking with Angry Michael on this show, he kind of sold me on the whole rotary idea. And I get how it can be a reliable engine with the right support. So I fully endorse rotaries. They sound insane and all that. Yeah. But we'll get to that in a little bit because I still want to kind of go chronologically here. Yeah. So we
blew up some. We blew up some JIC cars.
Yeah.
did a few pro events with them, and that really introduced me to what professional drifting was. And I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No.
Yeah. So then the second step after that kind of started to dissipate. I actually was working for Mazda Tricks, building my own second gen FC with the mindset of going professional drifting, and I got a phone call, and it was a Mazda connection, but he was building a Mazda and Nissan team, and it was actually the Grenade team, and I worked with them for 3 years. I helped them build a couple cars, the RX-8 that Rod Millen campaigned. Mazda Tricks and I actually built motors for that and helped build the chassis along with Reese Millen Racing and some other companies, Grenade. And then I drove a actual 180 SX for a few years. And that was difficult. I didn't like sitting in the right-hand seat. So
Yeah.
I never really had success on the right side. And we ran a HKS SR motor in a 180. And it was a blast, blew up a lot, and I stuffed it in a wall really hard. It actually pushed the wheels back up into my feet. I went in driver's side on the right, and that was the first time I'd really been in a hard head-on crash.
What year was that?
Oh, man. 2005 or 6,
Yeah.
maybe around there. It was a D1 qualifier, back when they had D1 qualifiers at Qualcomm Stadium, and they were just parking lot events. And I got a provisional, but I hit the wall real hard. So two out of 3 on the runs there. But we actually put that car back together, did a few more events, and that was probably 2006, because the economy crashed in 2007, and a lot of the Japanese companies
Nearly killed the sport.
Yeah, it nearly killed the sport. My dad's business, which was tool-based, Matco Tools, the company shop I was working with, Mazda Tricks, everybody around, we all suffered. And Grenade, JIC, a lot of those companies dissipated, so I kind of lost my ride. So I built my RX-7, and with the help of Mazda Tricks, my dad, literally my friends, we actually built it in my driveway because Mazda Tricks was apprehensive about drifting as a sport back then. And I built the whole car, basically showed up at the shop with it, put it on the dyno, and then we took it to Irwindale for a final round and debuted it with almost all white, and then came back the next year, probably 2007. And I think I tried to run a whole season in that year. And that was horrible. That was actually horrible. My whole first season was still top 16 qualifying, which I don't think a lot of people remember that. It was very much D1 style, so you had seated drivers. There was limited amount of spaces. So I basically traveled the whole country with my dad with a car we built, and I didn't qualify once. That really drove me the next year to do a lot better. And
Corey knows similar stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, and to all the Pro-Am guys and Pro 2 guys and pros, man, it is a tough sport. I mean, I started in road racing. I'm still actually a coach for Porsche, so a lot of people don't know this, but I actually am a driving coach and an engine builder, so that's primarily what I do nowadays. But I got my start doing more like go-karts, SECA, and made the transition into drifting because I thought it was amazingly difficult, and I loved the fact that there were no rules on motors, and I just wanted to build wild cars. I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, before I get too far away from it, though, I mean, your story is one of perseverance and love of the sport because you have had varied degrees of success throughout the years, but you have not given up by any means, and this is still your passion. And I hear from nearly every driver in the pit that the Mohans are some of the nicest people they know, and you guys are one of the major assets to Formula Drift, and that's why I'm really excited to finally be talking to you guys because there's such history, but also it's just about that story of perseverance and just doing what you love that it's important.
Yeah, that's awesome. And to come back to it, I mean, in 2008, I think I literally decaled the car in the shop with my wife. Decaled. So the decals, the graphics, we did them ourselves. And,
you didn't get rid of any of the cows that you had in there? Because that might have been why you weren't doing so well.
It needs cows. You got to have milk. Got milk.
Yeah. Corey drinks about a gallon a day. Gallon a day keeps the dog.
I do the milk gallon challenge every morning when I wake up.
Is that man milk?
It's weird.
I thought that was a different thing.
Yeah.
It's a man milk.
But yeah, so I mean, it was totally a family thing in 2008, and we put it together. And oddly enough, in 2008, we had some success. We started putting it together, and that gave us the opportunity to partner with Mazda USA in 2009, and that was with the help of multiple people: Mazda Tricks, Mazda USA, even more friends, and local Long Beach, because that's where I'm from, and Signal Hill Motorsports shops, and there's a lot of motorsports culture in that area. And I was able to basically, with friends and family, build a professional level car. And that was, I think, when we did some of our best in Formula D, was the first 3 years of that Mazda RX-8.
And that was, tell us about that setup. What was that motor? Was it like the Renesis, the newer one, or was it an older 13?
So in 2009, when we built that car, Bergenholtz was also building his car. Okay. And he actually hired Mazda Tricks to build a 3-rotor, and I was Mazda Tricks' engine builder. So basically, I knew right away that I was building a 500 to 700 horsepower 3-rotor for one of my competitors in Formula D.
Yeah, that's a 20B on that one?
Yeah, that was going to be a 20B. And so, and that was Ron Bergenholtz, and he had some great drivers lined up for it. And knowing that was going to be the case, I felt like I had to do my part, even more as a privateer, to really bring something that was formidable to the table. So we actually were one of the early 13B RE swapped RX-8s in the country, which would have been the FD3S motor or Cosmo style motor out of Japan. It was still a 13B 2-rotor. But through its iterations, the first year we were making about 500, which was actually a lot of horsepower in the series at that time. Just like you said, the rotaries don't have torque, but we have RPM. Right. And then that motor, as we went through the years and tried different platforms, some successful, some not, we got up into the 700-800 horsepower range. And we realized after that, as about 2012, that we just needed more power to continue to be competitive, and we actually copied the motor power plant that I had built for Ron Bergenholtz back in 2009 and put that into my car and continued its progression. And that led to some of the technology that we're using now. But when we first built that car, it was like most drift cars, handmade steering angle components, modified spindles. I put an FD3S rack in it. Custom bushings. We had a lathe at Mazda Tricks, so I turned it down, built the motor myself, Turbonetics Turbo. A lot of the partners in 2009 that I worked with are still partners today, so we've been fortunate, and we've been very loyal to our partners. They've been very loyal to us. And really went with what we knew as more of a drag race setup through the Mazda Tricks business. And we figured if drag racers could make 800 horsepower, then why couldn't we make 500 or 600 reliably? And that actually pushed a lot of the engine development with the Mazda Tricks shop, our customers, and led to what a lot of my career is now, which is building high-end turbocharged race rotary motors. And I even have my own product line now that we can talk about later, which is based on some of the porting and the components that I developed. So it's been a long thing, but So like originally 13B, very basic, very similar to a pro AM car, and we just went out there and drove really hard.
It's funny you mentioned that, like, you borrowed stuff from the drag racers, but drifting being maybe the youngest big time, if you want to call it that, motorsport. It's like they just borrowed things from Circle Track, and they borrowed oval track, and they borrowed things from drag racing, and that's kind of what drift cars are. Like, they're hybrid. Corey, am I saying this stupid? Dirt track, circle track, oval track. What's the professional term for calling it? Like what your brother does?
Like USAC sprint cars?
Yeah. What was that? Circle track, oval track?
Yeah, it's just dirt track.
Dirt
late
track,
models, yeah. USAC sprint cars, half mile.
But yeah, we copied that, and we copied drag racing, and you get drifting essentially. Like, that's kind of what our cars are. But it's really interesting hearing that progression. And then it's a common conversation that we have on the show is what should you do as a driver? Should you run a more tried and true and proven chassis that we know will operate this way and already has tons of support? Or do we run something newer to try to get manufacturer support that we have to develop ourselves? And you run a Miata or have been running a Miata. Was that a easy decision for you to make? Did you make it because of that? What was your move to the Miata about?
I think you actually mentioned something interesting, using chassis that are developed. When me and Bergenholtz actually built the RX-8s in 2009, there was nothing available for them. And now, building one, there's a lot of components available. The MX-5, I wanted something very fast. I looked at where the sport was going. I looked at who was winning. And there had been a transition from the bigger cars a couple years ago to the smaller turbocharged. So I felt like if we could use our displacement, our power plant more to our advantage, we could definitely go faster. I was worried about going fast, and it seemed like fast. Saito, there were many people that were winning by fast at that point, and I think that we absolutely proved that even though it wasn't a developed chassis, Mad Mike and I both had a similar idea and had some manufacturer support. And I actually, aside from what a lot of people say, I actually really did love driving that chassis.
Yeah.
And I think it actually showed people that it could be really competitive at very certain times. When we battled with Peter in the MX-5, when we battled with Osbo a couple times, I think we were very close to victory. And I think some of those battles were arguable. But that's what I actually love about drifting is that, there's a lot of drama behind it. And if you think about what sells on TV, drama sells.
It's drama, for sure.
So, whether you win or lose, we get to make a show out of it.
Is the MX-5 a harder drift car to drift?
Yes, it's so much harder. Oh my gosh, that thing tried to kill me so many times.
I don't know how
often. The first time I drove it, I ended up 90 degrees at a wall, just completely not oriented to how I wanted to be.
Yeah. And
it really taught me a lot about my driving, about new things I could do in the car. And I think it forced me to really be a better driver because every single thing you did really showed in that chassis.
Oh, yeah.
But hands down,
everyone in that chassis struggled.
Yeah, hands down, one of the hardest things I've drifted. It's also hands down one of the fastest things I've drifted when it's working right.
Yeah, it just seems so hard to pick a line and dial it and not bobble.
Yeah.
Like everyone I've seen in that car bobbles the car wildly just because it seems like you're always fighting the car. You're fighting to keep it in the direction you want it to be pointed in.
I would like to say though that I don't think I ever really, and maybe Mike too, in Formula D, your limited practice. There's a lot of aspects going on. I don't think that car ever really got to show how good it really was. I think that car is actually a very much a top 10 car. And we just were never able to really put it together with me as a driver, with the crew, with the series. But I think if you do see the highlights, there was actually a lot of potential in that chassis. And I'd like to show that still. I think there's opportunities this upcoming year where that car is still in my shop altogether, ready to rock. I'd love to be able to show
you can't say ready to rock.
Oh, yeah, no, it's not true.
Hold on. No. Oh, my God, he's doing Vaughn.
Vaughn, are you there? Hold on, we have Vaughn online. Vaun,
pull up your checkbook.
Juan Gittin, are you there?
What's up, guys?
There he is. Vaughn's awesome. Hey, Vaughn. So what do you think of Kyle using your signature move as well as your RTR branding? How do you feel?
Well, first of all, I want to say we're very pumped to be here in Tempe, Arizona. One of the first things I got to say, Kyle, that windmill, that's like right on point. Good job. After that, I got to tell you, we're gonna sue this guy.
Wow.
We got
Juan, I didn't think that's where you were so complimentary, Juan, and then you.
Yeah, it just downhill real quick.
Wow. All right.
Isn't it like setup 101? Easy prep them with like a good, like, hey, do you know what you're doing very well? But then you hit him with the hard one. Yeah. So you got a very good compliment. Yeah.
He's a businessman. He's a strategist.
Man, Vaughn might be driving a Miata or MX-5 next year.
Hey, up for rent. Anybody that
there you go.
A D car ready to go. 1,000 horsepower, nitrous, a great setup.
Which brings us to our next point: is that you're not driving the MX-5. What are you driving, man?
So, if
Oh,
you've been
boy.
following me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, we've been doing a lot more YouTube videos, kind of following the shop. We're bringing back our 2009 RX-8, and everybody's been asking, is it the same chassis? Is it a different chassis? Obviously, when we retired that chassis, it was very much used up. So we actually did buy a fresh RX-8. We bought a donor car and took everything we needed from that. But like a lot of Formula D teams, the actual roll cage, the actual between suspension points was okay. We had that checked out by a frame shop. So I would say the soul of our original car is still there. It's still the original roll cage. It's still the original flat pan. But everything else that's attached to it is a brand new Mazda RX-8. From the bodywork, the styling, the components going into it, every aspect. So I feel really good as we've developed now basically our rotary platform, our Doritos, and the different suspension combinations. We got WiseFab as a partner this upcoming year. So I really feel good about this chassis coming together, and also where Formula Drift, it's always a gamble, but where they were as of last year, their judging style, the size of the car, I think it's a very good lineup for the upcoming year.
Yeah, I'm
So
excited.
I'm
to see
excited.
you.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see you. Driver with your level of experience and talent in a car that is going to be hopefully much easier to drive. But I'm sure before Paco asked the question, I know what you're going to say, Paco, is why would you go back to the RX-8? Why not go all the way back and do like a Mazda Cosmo or something like that?
Was that the question?
Yeah, that was a question.
I've been waiting to answer that actually.
Good.
So,
good.
Well,
Good.
before you answer that, because let me ask my question, Sam. Thank you.
You piece of shit. I thought that was.
I mean, it was close, but because like I always thought about like what are the possibilities of driving like an S14 or even an S15 with a rotary swap on it.
Yeah.
It's like a proven chassis, but it's still got your Doritos, which is your thing.
Yeah. So the shop in a total, I mean, we're a family, we're friends, we're in it to have a good time. Drifting is still fun for us. But we do build rotaries. My business is building rotaries. So we really thought about every aspect. What could we put a rotary in? S15 was actually at the top of the list. That was one of our top choices. Amazing styling, proven chassis, a lot of aftermarket support. I think, with the way the sport's going, dropping in 1,000 to 1,500 horsepower 3-rotor or 4-rotor that's reliable for a season is actually a very viable option, just like a V8, a 2J, an electric power plant, whatever it may be. I believe even hot rodding. The second choice was actually a Corvette, and then so I think if you follow the online guys, Rob Dahm is actually doing a rotary vet, kind of upsetting the internet.
Yep.
And we just kind of went down the line. It could be a BMW. What would that mean? It could have been something classic. What would that mean? And we really had a lot of discussions about what would be something that we as a team really wanted to get behind. What would make us happy while we traveled the season? And it was one of those things where the RX-8's coming back in popularity. More and more people were asking why we weren't running it. We started looking at the wheelbase. We realized, well, we are rotary guys. Why are we going to put that power plant into something that's not? I mean, that would be great, a marketing direction in itself. But we decided, no, Rocket Bunny, RX-8, slammed, fat wheels, make it look badass. We want to bring it in stylish, and we want to bring it in with some power because we've been able to prove our power plants over the past few years. Yeah. And I think when we actually stopped running the RX-8, we were having issues making the power we wanted to for that size of the car, and I'm not really concerned about that now. We'll see what everybody else brings, though.
I think it's fun to see that 40 years later we can finally start making rotaries reliable. Well, and I gotta stop shitting on them because you guys are figuring it out. You and Mike and a lot of other people have figured out how to make them not blow up after every run.
Yeah, it's actually been quite a job from developing our own components, talking to people all around the world. And I guess now's the perfect time. I ended up actually even developing my own components from different porting templates, which would be the similar idea of adjusting cam timing or valve timing in a piston motor. So in rotary motors, you don't really have any valves or any of that valve train. So we basically just adjust our port timing. And by adjusting intake and exhaust flow, we can change how the motor performs. So I actually sell my own porting templates based off of the years of development I've done. We've learned how to stud the blocks very much like piston motors. So we've been able to strengthen the block to where they don't flex, they don't move around, they don't twist. Fuel delivery, companies like Haltech running ethanol, injection. I mean, if you think about modern cars, cell phones, technology has just leaped forward. But we've even brought out our own apex seal now, and that was something I even had apex seal problems. I mean, that's something that I think you think rotary and you go blame the apex seal.
Yeah, everybody.
And
Well, it's just like
joke,
the internet meme. That's always.
It's got to be the apex seal. And I always joke, it's just like anything else. There's usually something else that's going on that probably causes that harm. But it seemed like in rotaries, everything harmed the apex seal. So with the help of another apex seal manufacturer, we actually set out to build something that was set up for high horsepower. And if something did go wrong, because let's face it, in professional motorsports, you're pushing the limit, things do happen. It would be something more like a V8 where it wasn't detrimental at that moment. And so we actually came up with an apex seal that when you do detonate, it's a little more malleable. It'll actually flex, it'll bend, so you're not hurting other components in the motor. When you totally lunge something, you totally just, something goes bad, you suck in a rock or something, you're not just sending shrapnel everywhere. Yeah. And on the other end of it, we can actually run the motors a lot more aggressively. And if something does happen, they're by no means done. Very much like a V8. If you start to lose a little bit of compression in one bank, you can often realize it, maybe make adjustments. We've now gotten into the area where with rotaries, when you're talking about 3 rotors or 4 rotors, you have multiple banks. You can use these KMR tested apex seals, E&J, PW. There's multiple brands out there now. Yeah. But they're actually a apex seal that derived from drag racing that's set up for performance. And I mean, it just took, you guys said it, rotaries 20 years to really get to where, some of the stability was of the piston motors. But now we've got a lot tougher apex seals. We've got lightened rotors. I've got an aluminum block rotary at my shop, shaves 100+ pounds out of it, way stronger. So we finally have, through people like Mazda Tricks, me, Mad Mike, and companies around the world, we've been able to push the rotary into a point that's just like the 2J or the LS or anything at this point. I blew up an LS and I blew up a SR just as fast as I've blown up rotaries.
Oh, me too. I've blown up an SR before. I know how easy it is. All right, before we continue on this topic of conversation, we got to hit some YouTube Super Chat questions. What this is our listeners listening to the show live will get the opportunity to ask questions and support the show. This one's going way back because we've been bad and we haven't read them. Matt Hill says, get Gucci back on the show, which is pretty rude considering that Mohan's on the show right now. But to be fair, he said that before you're on the show. And Matt, we're going to get Gucci on soon. Don't you worry, buddy. The next one down, Powers Drift, not to be confused with Powers Sucks. It is Powers Drift, not Matt Powers. He says, Kyle, I miss you, brother. Give me a shout out.
That guy's cool. I look forward to seeing you guys. East Coast.
Good shout out.
Yeah.
Good plug.
Good plug. Usagi, 1969, great year. Doesn't say anything. He just gave us $2. Thanks, man. And then Homer Sorry, very important question here. Yeah. What's your exotic dancer name? No cop-outs, please.
Oh.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Is this bringing back memories?
That's tough.
I mean, while you think about it, I can say that we can go around our circle too. My exotic dancer name is the same as my rap name, which is Papa Squats.
Okay.
Because I do.
Go ahead.
Because I'm good at squatting.
Yeah,
and that's my only move that I got on the stage. Yeah. So what about you, Corey?
Well, I've only done this 3 different times in my life when I was trying to go to college, and I never went to college. I just kept the money and bought car parts with it. But I used to go by the name Fire Truck. Mm-hmm. And the reason was every time I hit the stage, I brought the heat. So
okay. Wait, Fire Trucks put out the heat.
I bring in this one.
Okay, so you're a fire truck that spreads
reverse
fire.
truck. Yeah.
So they called you the
that's
reverse fire truck, which incidentally is also my favorite
Uh-huh.
sexual position.
the fire truck.
The reverse
Wow.
fire truck. But
Definitely better than mine.
I like the idea though that there's a vehicle that exists on the road that's called the fire truck that starts fires.
Yeah. Uh huh.
It just has a flamethrower, Mad
Hey,
Max style. and
Sam, too
stuff.
soon, too soon.
What?
That's. Oh, are you making a bit about the Prodigy vocalist who just passed
The fire
away?
starter, dude.
Dude.
Come on,
Come on,
Sam.
Sam. Oh,
Hold on, Paco's making an unhealthy joke here. All right, Paco,
That's messed up.
what's your exotic dancer name?
dump truck.
Dump truck. Why are they calling you dump truck?
So bring
Wait,
in the
did-
dump.
Did you just take mine and add a different character?
No,
to it?
Corey.
No, I
how
think
how
he's
dare
taking
you?
The Cisco. He's taking the
Paco?
Cisco thong song route and saying that she's got dumps like a truck, and they're talking about Paco.
Oh, thanks, Sam. Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. Thank you.
All right.
That's a good
now-
How
save.
come we didn't go by the Texas tornado or something like that?
No, you're fire truck, reverse fire
Yeah.
truck, and he's dump truck. All right.
Yeah, we got a bunch of trucks.
So Kyle,
Please tell us your exotic dancer name, not truck related.
Come back to me in 5 minutes on that. I'm working on it. I'm working on
Told
it.
you. Okay.
Yeah.
Alexa,
Let's see.
set a timer for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a
I
name.
think I can do better than I did. So.
all right.
We'll move on to the next one. Paco, you want to read it?
Yeah, from Ben Tranter. Did you consider buying the Bergelsholtz RX-8? Thanks, Sam. When it
Try
was
again.
up,
Hold on.
Try it again.
did you consider buying the Versionholz
No.
RX?
One more time.
I'm not German like you, Sam.
Did you
Bergen-
consider buying
you-
the Bergenholz?
Bergenholz RX-8 when it was up for sale a few months ago for 50K. Thanks, Ben.
Hold on, he's not listening.
Oh, he's coming up with this. He's coming up with a stripper name.
Oh, hello. Good to have
Someone
you.
just whisper the stripper name to you, or
Good to
exotic?
have
excuse
you
me, not
back.
stripper,
Yeah,
exotic.
I'm getting stripper name help. So.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully the wife helped you with that.
Yeah.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it again after Ben Tranter's question here. Did
I
you
think-
consider
Gave
buying
me a good one, so.
the Bergenholz? Paco,
So-
let's hear. it.
Did you consider
Fox got it.
buying the Vergenholz
All right.
RX-8 when it was up for sale a few months ago for 50K?
Yeah, I did. The motor itself was probably a $20,000 plus motor when we built it from Mazda Tricks. But it was more my team saying, hey, Kyle, you should buy that than it was really me. I think that car was a fantastic car, but I like to build my cars. That's really part of the fun for me. So phenomenal build, phenomenal car, but I generally try not to buy other people's cars. I like to build them.
Yeah, you're a
But,
fabricator,
yeah,
and still
yeah.
fabricator yourself, and you've got a good
Yeah.
team, so it's
Yeah.
makes sense.
But how could you put a price tag on something that June Main piloted for 3 years?
And Chelsea.
And Chelsea
and
stole the
JTP.
ride.
The town
And
And
JTP.
JTP and Jeff Jones. Did Jeff Jones drive it too?
the
No,
town
that was
bicycle.
the BMI car.
Oh,
that was that
that's what
four-road
it was.
thing.
That's what it was. Dude, so some icons of the sport have graced and farted in that seat.
Yeah, how many
That
parts that seat
alone.
got soaked up?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure with my 13B, I was competing against it, and we were basically very similar in points depending on the time. So, no, phenomenal car, super cool. Did it get sold? Did Bergenholtz sell that thing? Does anybody know?
I don't. It's not confirmed. Not confirmed,
confirmed?
unfortunately.
Yeah, sick car. It was a cool build. Yeah, it was a little heavy.
I watched Chelsea crash it in the wall in Las
Yeah.
Vegas one year,
Yeah.
Yeah, I know JTP backed it in a few times. So.
but totally awesome.
Yeah. So I mean so I was thinking on the stripper names, I was like backing it in or something, but I was like, that is really odd. So then my wife came in and she was like max capacity. And I'm like, that's genuinely good. I'm like,
That is
that
really
came
good.
From the side angle. I'm like,
Wow,
I'll take it. I'll take the win. So
that's also a good monster truck name too.
right? Oh man. J-Rod is listening. I
props
want an
to your
upgrade. I want an upgrade.
Props to your
Jack
wife.
capacity. And does that have to do with anything about, how many of something you can fit in yourself, or?
Oh, I'm sure there's jokes. Yeah, I mean
Yep.
like the
All right.
marshmallow challenge,
Yeah, that's a good point.
Homer, sorry, asked a question, and then he realized that it's not the best question, and then he asked another question. But we'll read the first one regardless, because that's just what I'm about. He said, "Who's the best and worst sponsor over the years?" Homer, great question.
Wow.
Oh,
You ready to burn
Man.
some bridges, Kyle?
yeah. So
Hi.
I think best sponsors have been ones that have been there since the beginning. So Mazda Tricks, and I kind of like coaxed them into it. They didn't want to sponsor me. I just showed up with the car and put the sticker on there and was like, "You guys are sponsoring me." And then as I continued to drive and started to do better, they actually started to see a return, and we actually were able to prove with Mazda Tricks that we were able to sell motors and sell parts because of drifting. And that led me to be able to get a lot of other sponsors because we were able to prove the concept, and I had a history of being able to actually deliver marketing. On the bad sponsor forefront, no, I'll wait on that.
Oh, you'll.
Yeah, Turbonetics, Exity. If you look at my cars, they've been on my cars. Haltech.
Those are good sponsors.
Yeah,
to be
Baker
clear.
Precision.
You're
Yeah,
not saying those are bad
all
sponsors.
good. Yeah,
All right.
Mazda Tricks. Those guys, they've been on my car since I think the first year that I was actually campaigning. XXR Wheels, also one of the first sponsors I had, and they've stuck behind me every year. They've always supported me. So those guys get the massive shout out, and I'm sure I'm forgetting partners. And
No, you
that's
don't have to. We have a proper shout out
later on, but
at the end of the show.
they're the awesome ones. As far as bad
Alexa's
ones-
reminding me real quick.
What would make a bad partner? What would make a bad
That's what
partner?
I was going to ask, Corey. I was going to say real quick to prep this question. We always ask drivers, or we always talk about, I should say, how to be good to your sponsors, what to deliver to sponsors, and we've never before asked what does a sponsor need to do to be good to a driver aside from give you money?
Well, I mean, I think really
Hold on, Alexa, shut the fuck up.
Alexis.
Whoa.
Sorry, that was really rude of me. Oh God, I'm
Yeah.
gonna be the first to go in the robot
Yes.
revolution.
Bye.
She was reminding me about the stripper name, but it's we got it. Sorry. Okay. The question.
So actually, now with social media being so important, drivers spend a lot of money on videos and pictures because it's something we have to do. And it sucks when you spend a ton of money getting a sponsor, a video, pictures, something that you're obligated to do, and they don't do anything with it. So that is one thing that I think actually I've been way more active in. And if I see one of my partners not using the material to their benefit, I'll try to actually help them, understand how to benefit from it more. Because in the end, the worst thing you can do is lose a partner because they're not happy with the situation, which usually reflects something, on both parties. So it's usually a both party aspect, but yeah, that's usually a downer. The money, the not delivering stuff, not coming through with what's been promised. I mean, those are the big things. Being really, really over demanding and not really having an understanding of how much goes into the sport. But I think really it's kind of like courting relationships or putting together anything for a team. Part of what a driver and a team owner has to do when they're putting together partners is put that puzzle together right. If you got partners that are going to conflict with you or other partners, then that's a bad choice. Right. So I think, for me, we've spent many years actually cultivating good partner relationships and have definitely bounced out on some that have not been beneficial for whatever those reasons were.
What is a relationship? It's a two-way street, and you guys have to be good to each other. It's not just like they give you money and you deliver, and then that's the end of the game. It's a constant. It's a constant maintenance of understanding. Sometimes you're going to be laying in bed, and then the sponsor is going to come home way too late after hanging out with his other sponsors, and then they're going to be drunk, and they're going to be like, "Oh, where's my dinner?" And you're going to be like, "I'm sleeping, honey. It's 2 a.m." And you're going to be like, "Sponsor, please. It's not time for that." But the sponsor's going to come. The sponsor's going to be like, "Give me the assets," and he's going to hit you.
Give me those assets, brother.
I think the example is when your sponsor does something to piss off Andy Luck. That's when you know. That's when you know the sponsor has crossed the line.
Oh.
Hey, see, there you go. Corey knows. Anybody knows. Like I was gonna say when a sponsor does something that affects Formula D, but I think the root of it is when the sponsor pisses off Andy Luck.
Yeah. Don't want to do that.
And I can name multiple ways of doing that.
Well,
I don't
I
suggest
think there were a
any of
couple.
them.
and that's the team's job to make sure the sponsor understands what is going on. But at the same time, that falls into that category. I had a sponsor that he thought he was above maybe policies and laws, and shut down.
Yeah.
Shut down.
Well, that
That's
reminded me
great.
of the other question that I was going to say earlier at the head of the show. I don't know if you're listening, Kyle, but we're talking about the potential electric car coming into
Yeah.
FD.
I listened to the
Kevin-
last show as well.
Cool. Kevin mentioned they're like, oh, we don't have any plan for like making the electric car make noise as it's driving around. But it's like, you guys didn't think about the pits. Like every FD round, the drift cars always drive through the pits. It's going to be a massive problem if that car doesn't make any noise because, the standard move is as you're driving from the pits to the track, there is a swarm of people that are very excited to see your car. You rev your motor. And it's cool because it makes everyone happy because they get to hear your 2J or your LS and your NOS and your
Rotary.
whatever.
Rotary.
Yeah, your rotary. Excuse me, your rotary. And it makes everyone happy. And it also means get the fuck out of the way so I can get to the track. This car's not going to have that because there's.
Yeah.
It's gonna have a horn. Ming, ming.
Did you guys? Well, yeah, I was thinking that it could have some fart noises. It could have.
Auga, auga.
They could hire us to just,
Yep.
do really bad banter. They could play the bass flute. Someone could sit on the hood in a nice
Play-
outfit
Ice
Play the
cream
Titanic
truck.
theme song.
Ice cream
Yeah.
truck. Yeah.
and play the Titanic theme song. Also, did you guys mention clutch stuff at all? I forgot to. Maybe that's not the
That's
time.
a
But
great question. I didn't ask that.
because there's no clutch. How
Is it
how
engage,
far-
just disengage? Is that?
No,
we
no.
got to get Napoleon on the show to talk about it.
If
but
you let go of the gas, the car just doesn't move.
what do you? We'll get to Homer's second question here in a minute. But what do you think about an electric car coming to FD? Because I'm all abuzz. I have so many questions.
Man, I think it's cool. I think Formula D is the ultimate playing field, and I think that's what actually brought me to drifting as a sport, was the fact that it was one of the only racing motorsports that you could do anything. I don't think there's a rule against a turbine engine, jet engine, something along those lines.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I can't go against the reason why I got into the sport. I love hot rodding. That's just a modern hot rod. I think Kevin Wells has easily made 10 rules for me. So I expect him to be right on top of that electric car. I mean, I'll say it. I love Kevin. Formula D has been great to me, and he has walked over to me at an event and made a rule for me.
Yeah, well, like,
So-
you can't do this anymore, sort of
Yep.
rule.
Yep, exactly. You done. And I'm like, cool, I'll have it fixed at the next event. And he's like, no, 10 minutes before you go out, that's going
Do
to
you
be
have an
changed.
example of what that is?
Yeah, my favorite one was I put strobe lights in actually the tail of my car because Ross Petty had some cool strobe lights. And so I got
You're
some,
one of the flashers.
yeah, and I had that thing all lit up. It was flashing in the front, flashing in the back, flashing under the wheels. And I thought it looked about as badass as it really could, as far as that goes. Just, flashing lights and fun stuff. And yeah, I guess it actually was affecting the judge's ability to see the car in the smoke, which
Not to
I
mention the
hoped.
chase driver.
I hoped. And it was also, affecting the chase driver, which I also hoped.
Yeah.
Just like any Formula G driver would. I mean, we're all trying to win and have fun doing it. And so he came over and he said, all right, you can't have those strobe lights anymore, especially the rear facing ones. And I think I said, no problem. It's all wired in. I'll have that fixed by the next round. And he was like, no, before you run in 10 minutes, you're going to have that stuff out of the car. And then we did.
Can you just unplug them, hopefully? Or
yeah,
was it
we just
flexible?
unplugged some stuff. And there's been other things as well. And I appreciate, what they do. I've been mad a few times, but I appreciate what they do overall. So
Yeah, I mean, it is one of those things that's like some of the rules that are so obvious, but also not obvious. It's like, oh, you could just blind the driver in front or behind you just as a goof. It's like that could really be a helpful asset if you could blind the chase driver. And maybe somebody could have, obviously you weren't trying to be malicious about it, I hope, but someone
No,
could put like
I
a
just thought-
3,000 watt high beam directly into the rear driver's face. And then
Yeah.
Kevin might not have thought about that and be like,
Yeah.
come on, June. You can't do that. That's not cool, man.
Yeah, so I guess that's where that was heading, and so they thank you, Kyle Mohan Racing. Unfortunately, no more strobe lights in the rear tail lights. But I got some great photos from Larry Chen at the time when we did have the car lit up like that. It made the smoke look really cool, and
I bet.
yeah, it was fun. It was fun. So,
all right, a couple more questions here, and then we'll keep going. Homer, sorry, second part. Who is older, Sam or Kyle? Very, very good question. How old are you?
How old am I? I'm
We're gonna
pretty
take a
sure.
guess.
I'm pretty sure I'm 36.
I'm old enough to party,
What?
so that makes me a little bit younger.
Sam, you're 69.
No, I'm 32. 32,
Oh,
old enough to
barely.
party.
Dude, think about this. 12 years ago, you
Oh,
were getting
hold on.
sport.
Do you see how many watchers are in YouTube right now?
69, 68, dude.
Baby.
It's your same age, but you two powers combined, Sam.
That's just a good number.
It is. It really
Why is it a good number, Kyle?
I think it's lucky. I've heard that it's something to do with luck or getting
Yin
lucky or
yang,
lucky.
Sam. It's
Some kind of
yin-yang.
luckiness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yin yang. It's balanced. Looks cool.
Yeah, it does. Good call, Kyle. You're very knowledgeable.
And then Usagi 1969 says teaming up with TCP Magic and Mad Mike ?
Please.
Obviously the Rotary community is small. Mad Mike and I talk. I've talked with R Magic, Ariyama Miya. I think I've talked with TCP, but we all run our own programs. And one of the reasons I think it's difficult for American drivers to go international is we get so invested in our U.S. programs. And as you saw with Mad Mike, while he was trying to campaign in the U.S., it was difficult for him to campaign elsewhere. So I would love to see the day where Mike and I could team up. And I even have invited him to use my facility, Mazda Tricks shop. We even talked about it back when he was campaigning over here. And you never know, it could happen. But, I think right now we're just kind of running our programs. If he shows up this year, I'd be stoked to see him.
Corey, have you heard any rumors?
Yeah. Any rumors? Is he coming?
On who's that?
Mad Mike.
Mad Mike.
Oh, I don't think so.
Welcome back, Corey.
Yeah, no, I
what
don't.
were you doing?
I was managing the YouTube chats.
He's twitching. No, he's twitching right now. He's playing League of Legends.
No, I haven't heard any confirmation on Mad Mike. I think he's happy where he's at with winning the championship, and I also
he's doing
think
so good over there.
Yeah, he just won the championship, and I think he's been very stoked with spending time with his kids and his family, and that he knows when he was out here last time. A lot of times that we talked to him, he got kind of emotional about just being away from his family from so long, and
It's tough.
so he says if there was from my understanding, if there was an opportunity to get everybody out here for a few months and his family things, I'm sure he totally would, but we wouldn't count him out. You know what I mean? We definitely wouldn't want to count him out.
Here, I'll say it. Hey, Mad Mike, come drive my MX-5 in a round or two. Hit me up.
That would be cool.
Boom.
That'd be cool.
It'll be
That's a
similar. It'll be
solid
similar.
invite.
So when is your we were talking earlier before you got on about drivers getting their cars done before Long Beach, like actually weeks before Long Beach. How's your car coming along as far as the build process, and when are you going to be testing that thing?
Our goal is to be testing soon. We already have a motor done. We're waiting on a few components. Wiring's got to go in, and we've been staggering some photos online, and hopefully we'll be releasing some livery options soon. But part of the fun is, kind of keeping some stuff a little bit secret. So, when the debuts happen, they happen. But it's getting close, and I'm quite excited about it. I can say HGT 5-speed sequential, same as the MX-5. Will be over 1,000 horsepower. We partnered with Precision Turbos again. And I noticed, I hope I'm not wrong, I think I saw Forrest partnered with him too, which is cool. Right. I'm really stoked to see them getting more involved in drifting. They've got a massive drag racing championship culture. I picked up more horsepower right when I bolted it on, so really happy with that. So
you know what? Speaking of turbos, somebody gave me a unique analogy about turbos and why there's so many different brands and why you choose certain brands. And the analogy was like certain companies, if you were to equate it to like shoe sizes. Some turbo companies make like a 9, a size 12, and a size 14. That doesn't fit everybody. The good turbo companies makes the 9, 9.5, 10, 10.5, and so on. And so I've heard Precision and some of these other companies are the ones that are able to fine tune what you actually want rather than having 3 sizes to choose from. So it seems like a lot of people are stoked between the Borg, the Precision, and now the Garrett. are still
There's
kind of like
also-
the big three.
To push that turbo even further, it's like they also have like lace sizes, like how fast you can tie up your shoes, and you have like
Yeah.
the sizes of the soles. It's like, do you want to wear some high heels? You're looking for
Yep.
some ninja slippers.
Yeah, and turbo technology, fuel delivery technology, everything has just jumped. So I might be wrong on this, but it seems like on the turbo side, there is actually a lot of it that has to do with patents and developing technology. Because if you look at what Formula One, what they're doing with turbocharged systems, some of like different manufacturers, Porsche, Mazda, turbocharging a Ford is becoming way more a part of industrial and OEMs. So I think right now, like you said, those brands that have the good sizes and have been pushing the technology are actually getting a lot more support from the industry because turbocharging has kind of jumped to the forefront a little bit.
Yeah, and the only reason, and it's funny because they broke it down like if I was just an idiot, which I am with turbos, this is my only first year, because we were talking about going turbo sizes and things like that, but it's all one component affects the other, and it all has to work together. Because like, well, why don't we just go big? Well, big affects actually 3 other things, or you need 4 other supporting components. And so, because there's a lot of there's 2 more turbo companies that are actually coming into FD this year on different levels, and I'm hearing they're trying to get these different drivers. But after digging into some of them, it's like once again you get into that spot where you're limited to size and availability and how that affects your program. It's like, yeah, this turbo company has more money and they only have 3 sizes, but they may not work. So it's like details is actually what matters when it comes to turbo. And once again, this is all new to me. That's the only reason why I'm talking about. I'm sure you're much more of an expert than I am at it, but it's all understandable when somebody says like that. It's like, dude, you want to get the size that fits.
Yeah, and not only that, size is massively important, but then their outer structure, and I think that is arranged too, whether it's V-banded, bolted, internal wastegate, external, and what they've been producing can produce different outcomes. And then on the OEM side, I think manufacturers are using more and more of that, like that style, because it actually does help with cars burning cleaner. Your turbocharger is actually in line in the exhaust, helps with that heat, with what they're doing there. They're actually able to run a little hotter, burn the fuel a little bit more cleaner, and be able to produce more power, basically using your exhaust, that spent gas. So there's a lot of benefits to turbocharging on the performance side as well as on the OEM side right now. And then you add in the fuel side, we're getting higher octanes, so and compression is going higher with motors. So all of that stuff kind of coincides. You got to have high octane fuel, you got to have turbochargers, you got to have high compression, and you'll actually have a cleaner burning engine.
Awesome.
Or make more horsepower. It just depends on what you want.
We'll get you. I know you got a limited schedule here, so we'll get you out of here shortly. But 2 questions. I know that there's probably long answers for both of these.
I'm actually having a good time. So
Well,
I'll
you
push it as
gave
long as
us-
I can,
You gave us that ultimatum to be
Yeah,
gone
yeah.
by 8:30 PST because you thought you wouldn't have a good time.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, Corey, he's not known as being a good time, right?
No, he's a piece of shit.
Sorry, guys.
Well, then I'll ask
My
the questions
fault.
properly. I've got 2 of them, but I'll start with the first one.
Yeah.
You're mentioning all the benefits of turbos, but how do you feel about 4-rotor NAs? Because I feel like that's
Awesome.
popular. And also, why don't people typically put a turbo on there? It's already too high strung, or what's the deal?
I think if you look at your professional motorsports, 4 rotors are usually turbocharged, and if you look at your
Alright.
normal builds, a lot of them are naturally aspirated. I think it's the effort and technology that's necessary and expense involved.
Okay.
I mean, you're talking about a motor like an LS. Yeah, your 4 rotor is going to be 20, 30 grand and 500 or 600 horsepower, or it's going to be 40, 50 grand and it's going to be 1,200, 1,500 horsepower.
Yeah.
And,
So
dollars are...
you really don't
somewhere
need
in
it at that point for our
You don't
sport.
need it. Yeah.
And then when you chose to go back to the RX-8, why the RX-8, not the FD? The FD is FD RX-7 is it's arguably a much more popular and revered chassis.
So I actually put it up on social media, and it wasn't just a joke. I had drifting.com posted. I put it on my YouTube. I put it on Instagram, and it was a while ago, and it was kind of...
Didn't ask us, but that's
Yeah.
fine.
It was a what should I run in 2019, and the fans actually voted in RX-8. So
No way.
yeah. I was really actually looking for chassis and thought we were going to go FDRX7. And I thought it would be unanimous because coming from my generation and from being a fan of the JDM culture, it's hands down FD, Supra, NSX. I mean, those are your tuner icons. But it seems like drifting isn't just a tuner culture sport. And I think that reflects the cars that are out there right now, your Camaros, your Mustangs. And so I actually was surprised. And I think I actually feel good about it. That's beneficial for our partners, OEM manufacturers. But it's a new audience that isn't necessarily just tied to what the culture of drifting originally came from. So their vote was in on the RX-8, to my surprise. And that's what we went with. But obviously, we're using a Rocket Bunny style kit, and we're keeping a very much JDM flair, even though I'm very much American and I build stuff very much the American style.
Good stuff.
The car has definitely grown on me looks wise. I didn't like it much when it came out, and I didn't like it a lot. No offense to you or anyone in the Bergenholtz car, but it's like I wasn't ever a fan of that style.
Yeah.
But as the more time goes on, I really enjoy those. Like I don't know, I almost said dick nose fenders, but like hammerhead fenders, like the hammer, it just looks weird, and now it's kind of growing on me.
Well, I think also too the aftermarket is getting much larger for those cars too. They were neglected for so long, but now like people like Kyle's, like those engines go left and right. Now there's alternative methods to repair these engines, and so hopefully as rotaries get more popular, more people will start swooping them up. And I think obviously with Rocket Bunny producing a kit and putting a lot of momentum behind the chassis again, as far as there's some nice cosmetically appealing kits and pieces you can put on the car. Now that there's motor set options through Kyle's operation, I think you'll see them start coming around more often. I wanted to go back to your car again, Kyle. Would you say you're about 70% done with the chassis as far as getting it ready and running?
Yeah. I think the big hurdles right now are just we're waiting on a couple components that are tied up with manufacturers, and then wrapping up some of the wiring. So the majority of the stuff's there. A little bit of fabrication, wiring. So
awesome. Another question for you. Sorry, Sam. I'm gonna just throw this one in on there just real quick.
Yeah, I've got a Facebook one that's actually pretty good. But get it.
All right. 3 rotor, 4 rotor. Those aren't cheap pieces, right?
No.
It's what makes them expensive and difficult to get. Like, and do we see any opportunity in the future of these becoming more obtainable to more people on the street, or is this still something? Because you see New Zealand super heavy in developing products for this car, but you're still looking at $30,000-$40,000. You look for some 4 rotors online. Do we ever see you think this kind of going in the direction where they're obtainable to most people?
They're a little bit of an exotic motor. So I think there is just that part of it is difficult as manufacturing continues to come down. We get more and more billet products. I think the ease of obtainability is definitely going to go up. But the reality is the components just aren't that cheap. So
what's the
there is
expensive
a cost
part?
behind it. So to obtain a 3-rotor block per se, you're right now on the used forefront looking at about $6,000 to $8,000, or $6,000 to $8,000.
Just empty block.
That's just a used JDM block that it's been sitting for 10 years.
What did that come in?
That would have been the Cosmo in the late 80s, early 90s, and that was the only time.
No, the early Ninedos. I like that a lot better.
90s, yeah, the 90s.
Welcome back to the Ninedos.
The Ninedos, I like that too.
Yeah.
So those blocks. Okay, so sorry, I'm asking really dumb questions, and it's just because I don't know, so it's okay to make fun of me.
Yeah, bring it.
Rotors are plates, right?
Yeah.
They're plates.
Yeah.
And what is this
Sandwich.
of people stacking plates? Can you stack 3 or 4 together rather than having to do a Cosmos or so?
Cosmos.
So I can take, and if you have a 3-rotor eccentric shaft, and there's a particular center plate in 3 rotors and 4 rotors that hold the center bearing, the center gear for the shaft that goes down. So if you think about a rotary, there's just 13B has bearings on either ends. A 3-rotor has to have a bearing in the middle, and a 4-rotor has to have more bearings in the middle to support the shaft, kind of like any other crank would, but it's running right down the middle of the motor. So those plates are the issue and the shafts are the issue. Mazda never made 4 rotors for the public. It was never in a car. So the only 4 rotors that are out there are either from Mazda Racing, factory racing, which are very rare,
The
very
787B.
unique. Yeah, 787B, things
And
like that.
no one's getting rid of those.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
are so rare and so unique that even if you got one, it's not going to be like one of the New Zealand 4 rotors that Mad Mike has. You wouldn't, interchangeable pieces even become an issue. They even changed the sizing of the bearings in those motors for Le Mans. So what New Zealand did and Australia did was they actually started manufacturing their own shafts and plates to be the bearing supports and the shafts. So everything else is actually 13B. You give me the center plates and the shaft, and I'll use the rest 13B components. But that still means you need good 13B components, which, well, an FDRX7 block is still $1,500 for a used one. And if you're building a 3-rotor or 4-rotor and you come in with used parts, I'm going to tell you, nah, that's not something I'm going to build for you. So the expense goes up very quickly when you have to buy all of these components new, and there aren't easy aftermarket sources. And the aftermarket sources that have the eccentric shaft or those plates available, they reflect the OEM prices that Mazda had, and Mazda also knew they were very rare and very unique. I think at one point Mazda sold the center plate alone for the 3-rotor for $4,500, and the eccentric shaft was around $5,000. So to build a new 20B, you were going to be in it probably $12,000 or $15,000 in parts before you started labor, and that's where the reliability comes in. Because everybody blew up rotaries for years because there was really no back end. There was no blueprinting. There was no lightning. There was no strengthening of the block. There was no aftermarket components. There was no knowledge on the clearancing that needed to be done at certain RPMs. And really, that's what me and Mazda Tricks did through the years is we blew up so many motors. If somebody tells us at the shop or me what boost they want to run, what RPM they want to turn, and what their goals are, I can tell them what the clearances need to be in the motor. And there isn't a lot of shops around the country that do that. And I think most of the shops that Mazda Tricks and I compete against are either they just manufacture components and actually don't have very much racing behind them, or they only are racing and they're not actually developing any products. So I think we're actually one of the few companies in the U.S. that's like Ariyama Miya, where we're actually testing and racing currently and still actually building and selling rotary components actively. So.
All right. Before we get to Instagram questions, Kyle, can you either move your body to the left or your camera to the right? We fell off the frame a little bit there.
My
While
bad.
he's doing that, Paco, I think a good visual representation of
is
everything we've been
perfect.
talking about is let's say for example that your head is a rotor. If you could give us a physical demonstration, and let's say that the bass flute is a shaft. So we can kind of see. Let's just show the fans real quick, just to let them see what he's talking about.
Yeah, can you?
I'm not in reach. The bass flute is not in reach, so we're just gonna pretend.
Okay, so everyone right now, what Paco's doing is he's inserting the bass flute, which is the shaft, into his rotor, which is his head. There's a couple ways to go about that, but as you can imagine, Paco's a smart kid. He knows what he's doing, and that's going to be the rotation. And picture the rapid rotation. How many RPMs are we talking here, Kyle?
I'm doing 10,000 RPMs with 1,000 horsepower.
10,000 times in a minute. This big flute circulating around Paco's head.
And then, so we're running. Last year we ran a target boost of 37 pounds and 70 shot of nitrous.
37 pounds.
Yeah, 37 pounds
man.
target boost.
I always forget that rotaries do that.
Yeah. So I always like mentioning that. I like to throw it out there.
Yeah.
And then we did a 70 shot of nitrous, and that hovered around 1,000, give or take, depending on the event. So.
So that the Facebook question I was going to ask was Julian Simmons said, "Will your rotary be single turbo this year with NOS or twin turbo like the 13B in the show car?"
Gonna have to wait and see. You'll know very soon. You'll know very soon.
Spicy Kyle over here keeping the secrets. All right then.
Here's the other question. This is from Paul Velechkov. Kyle, describe to us your machine shop and what kind of CNCs do you have? I'm a machinist, so let's talk shop.
Machinist.
Oh man, so this is a tough one to answer. So I started off really most of my machine work with non-CNC, non-computer aided stuff. So in my personal shop right now, I've got a lot of old school equipment. I've actually got just a base old lathe, upright mill, mini mill, old school drill press. And I do a lot of handwork with that. But when it comes to the rotor lightning and upper end stuff, we've got a Fadal XL. But that's not actually in my race shop right now. So we actually, I ran out of space, so had to move that out.
Don't blame you.
Yeah.
Make room for more cars.
But I'm hoping to do some expanding. It turned out with production products, it's been easier for me to outsource, and then with a lot of the rotary work I do, it's weird. I have to physically be touching the rotor. I am checking every measurement, and even after I would CNC something, if I did a batch, I still had to go in and basically rework everything to my tolerances. So when it's my race motor, when a customer has a certain desired goal, I have very specific tolerances I'm going for, and it doesn't matter whether it's CNC'd on the Fadal or we're doing it by hand. We're looking for very specific measurements between Mazda Tricks and a KMR, and I think that's kind of what's helping us out right now. But and we got access to a 3D printer. We've been doing some stuff with Mazda Tricks and KMR on that. But lapping table, that's something most people have probably no idea what it is. I have this massive resurfacing table in my shop, and it's basically a huge disc that spins around, and I can put the plates on it for the rotary motor. And I think it's only one of probably 3 in the United States, but it does a very fine grinding, so you're not actually surface grinding or CNCing like you would do on a block to deck the heads or flatten it out. It's actually a lot finer. It's what people use for machinery or flattening other precision items. So that's actually what Mazda Tricks, us, and a couple other rotary shops use around the country. I think that's pretty cool. A lot of welders, tube benders, couple lifts, plasma cutter, really important. You got to have a plasma cutter. Torch, barbecue. Got a hot dog.
That's
man.
Brian's
Hot dogs.
most important tool in the shed right there.
Yeah. There's a
yeah,
couple super chat questions also.
Yeah, we're gonna hit super chat questions. We're gonna hit Facebook a little bit. We're gonna hit Instagram a little bit, of course. If you want to make sure a question gets answered, make sure to tune in live and do the super chat. Supports the show, supports everything. I want to stay sideways for a second, just because I want to mention the name because it makes me so excited. Obi-Juan Cannoli.
Obi-Juan Cannoli
is a really great name. He donated and then he forgot to write out his question, which I love, but even more so.
But I have his question down
you
here.
Got it. You got it.
Yeah, you ready for it?
You want to read it, Paco?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. It says Obi-Juan Cannoli. If you don't tuck in your shirt into your pants, then do your pants get tucked into your shirt?
Wow, that's deep.
Mind blown.
So I work at Porsche, and I know that I have to tuck my shirt into my pants. It doesn't go the other way around. Like, it's just this constant thing. And actually, I bet most people don't really know that. I spend 9 to 5 almost every day coaching in Porsches, teaching people how to road race and understand 911s, which I think actually has a lot to do with balance on drifting. But I'm going to say the shirt goes into the pants. But that's because I'm from the 90s and my pants fall down.
That sounds good. That sounds so German, so Germanly over-engineered.
Yeah, it is. It's way over-engineered.
Hey, side note, you talking about Porsche. Do you work with Pat Mordaunt?
Yeah, I work with Pat and Dai Yoshihara. I just went to Finland and drifted Porsches up in Finland. So the ice thing is where it's at. For Osmo, all those guys, man, that's the jazz. That's totally the jazz.
Let's talk. What is Mordaunt doing? Just bro talk. Is he done with drifting? What has he been saying to you?
He snowboards a lot. Dude he's doing good. I mean, he still loves cars. He rips around in the 911s.
Is he officially an adult now?
I don't know about that. I'm not gonna give him that much credit. He'll beat me up probably the next day he sees me.
He'll always be your baby boy, Paco.
He's getting there. Is he
getting
he's a
ripped?
good dude. Yeah, he's a good dude. He's buff. He's a fun guy to work with, honestly. And Dai Yoshihara is a really fun guy to work with too. There's a lot of great coaches out at that place. I can't name them all, but shout out to all the coaches for sure. Yeah.
Well, because he's one of those faces that he got the Apex I ride in the SC430, and then he ran it for 1 year after turbocharging it, and then he vanished. And then you don't hear much from people like him. Do you see Jun Ming at all?
No, I haven't, and I actually tried to research him, and somebody told me he's been doing some. They saw him at like a go-kart thing, and he still is doing stuff, and like went to engineering school or something, and just still trying to kind of follow his passion for motorsports. But obviously, I think he had to make a change for whatever reason.
Yeah, and he's the mascot on our show, and for whatever reason, I forget how it started, but we tried to get him on for the 100th episode. We couldn't get a hold of him, but June, if you're out there, 200 is coming right up, and we'd love to have you. And Stay Sideways says, YouTube Super Chat, for everyone, that's for the chats, for whoever wants to respond, but most of all for Kyle, who's winning the championship in 2019? Stay Sideways says Daigo.
Is he coming back?
I don't think so.
There's a rumor.
So who's going to win in 2019 if you don't win, Kyle? Because we're all rooting for you here, of course.
Jeff Jones.
Jeff Jones.
Yeah,
I'm ready
nobody's
for
asked about Jeff. I mean,
I'm ready
he's
for the
he's my
Jones
buddy.
annihilation.
Yeah. We're teamed up again, so we're going to be partying our way through the Formula D series, having a very fun time.
Are you going to be doing what? Do you have a different mask for every round and a different Fortnite dance for every round? Or excuse me, it's not Fortnite. It's not Fortnite. It's the Carlton. Carlton came up with it. How dare anyone
He's gonna
say
get
that
sued,
anyone else's
Sam.
other than...
But they were actually doing the shoot dance, Sam.
Yeah.
Jeff
It's a floss.
is such a better dancer. It's just disappointing. We're gonna have to work on some definitely good opportunities, but the live stream, it's awesome how sometimes you're able to sneak in that background there. It's perfect.
Yeah. So
You
what
got
was
it.
it? I don't want to get too far off the topic. I know we're running out of time with you, but what was it about your chemistry with Jeff this past year that kind of sparked this whole new camaraderie between you two that we haven't seen that side before? Like, what is it that caused this thing to happen?
Well, I think Jeff and I both work on our own cars. We've worked really hard to be in the series, continue to be in the series. And we also, for many years, and still do, drive our own rigs. So, I mean, it doesn't matter. We're on the road. We're fixing the cars. We're 100% involved in the effort that makes our Formula D efforts possible. So, over the years, Jeff would see me broken down on the side of the road, lend a hand. He'd come and steal beers out of my ice chest when we were at the Formula D rounds. It was one of the first guys. He's from Southern California. He's usually one of the first guys when we get to a round on the East Coast. He was there setting up, just like I was. And a lot of the big teams, you show up and there is a setup crew working on it, or the crew is working on it, not the drivers. So it became ritual that it was like one of the first guys I'd go talk shit to was Jeff Jones. Like, again, if my ice chest was out, then he was going to probably come raid it as soon as he could. So we'd already built a little bit of a friendship chemistry and knew we had each other's backs, to the point at which he actually helped me fix my truck on the top of Grants Pass in the middle of the night. And I mean, that's a friend right there. And helped me get to Seattle. I hate Grants Pass. the June.
There you go.
But
So gentle.
Good. So gentle. But yeah, like in the end, we realized that we probably had the ability to benefit from partnering up. We could be a larger trailer. We had partners that needed a little bit of cross promotion. I had Top One Oil, and we actually wanted to expand a little bit of our marketing into Formula D. So Jeff and I partnered up with Top One.
Who's receiving a phone call from space?
Me.
All right.
I
Go
threw
ahead.
it on the ground, but it didn't work.
You have to step on it.
I was next. But we basically had some partnership opportunities within our sponsors, and we both wanted a bigger trailer, and we were tired of just going and raiding each other's ice chests, so we figured we could share an ice chest and have a much better time. And it really was an unsure thing. When we took off at the beginning of the season last year, I don't think either of us really knew what it was going to be like. And halfway through the year, we were joking. People were joking. It was like, oh, they're stepbrothers. They're roommates. And it was literally because me and Jeff were like sleeping as we crossed the country in the truck. But he's a great guy, and together, I think I can get a little over technical sometimes. And on the vice versa, Jeff is very much get it done.
Yeah.
And so we shared a little bit of our dynamics on the team forefront and just the travel forefront. And we both saw the benefit. You know, we had probably one of the more fun years either of us have had. We got some great sponsorship opportunities. We did more events, and I enjoyed it more. And I think a great just long-term old statement is keep drifting fun. And it may be my job. I do professional drifting. That's my business. I also build rotary motors. That's my business. And I'm also driving coach. But if it wasn't fun, I wouldn't do drifting. And so for me, getting to hang out with Jeff last year, having a 2-car team, it truly brought some fun back. And I really look forward to this year. And I think we have some really fun stuff planned. It's going to be a good year. So.
That is awesome, man.
Let's we've got of course a ton of Instagram questions. Like to hit at least a few of them. Let's try to do kind of a lightning round here.
Perfect.
I hate to keep on reading the questions from our long-time listeners, first-time callers, but Iron Dookie always nails it. Would you rather have a 28-car field where the top 4 qualifiers get bye runs and a top 16, or a 36-car field where there's no bye runs and 4 teams don't even get in the show?
I want Formula D to be sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever
does that mean
it takes.
36?
Yeah, I think 36-40 is actually a pretty good number, but by sustainable I mean we have to have the sponsors. And I think on the visual side, most people don't realize that most professional motorsports don't always fill their fields. Go look at NHRA, go look at your actual professional road racing, even NASCAR, IndyCar. The fact that Formula D has between the mid-20s and on the upper end 40 professional teams that are willing to sacrifice so much is incredible. And then if you look at what Formula D has done, comparatively speaking, on the marketing forefront, it's surprising that we actually don't have more sponsors just dying to get into our sport right now. But I think it's just a matter of time. People are realizing there is a ton of value within it. And because the drivers are able to showcase what they do, it helps make Formula D more valuable. If we went back to, and this is the other end of the spectrum, if we went back to a 70-car field, would there be enough tires?
Yes. Great point.
And there physically wouldn't. We have gotten so high with our horsepowers, we're using so much more, we're taking more time. There's a balance that we're achieving, and I don't think we're there yet, but I think Formula D is doing a good job managing a very sound professional field. I mean, 20 of us have been doing, there's a group that's been, consistent for quite a while, although some fluctuate. I think we've been consistent within that 20 to 30 range for a long time now.
All right, let's hammer through a couple more. I'll do one more. Corey Puck, I'll grab a few there. Dirty Love Chris says, if you couldn't have a rotary in your car, what motor would you choose?
Great question.
Well, I've drove a lot of SRs. They weren't so great to me. If people didn't know it, I built a V8 powered RX-8 years ago and campaigned that in China and was pretty successful with it. It was naturally aspirated for a year, and then we supercharged it with Magnuson. And that was actually a really fun car. So, I mean, V8s are fun. I always liked hot rods. My first car was a 63 Studebaker. I think a twin turbo LS has always been something that I've thought was I'd love to do that. Horsepower is good. Boost is good. If I can do 37 pounds of boost on a 2-liter, what can I do with a 6-liter?
Right.
And actually, I got one more last-minute question here from Butt Ranger 420, and he says, theoretically, couldn't you make a motor that was just a 2x replica of a rotary motor, and what would that do?
So it probably means like 2 13Bs put together?
No. This guy, Butt Ranger, he just whispered again to me. He said, let's just take the size and double it of everything.
Oh, yeah.
Because they do that in regular motors all the time, piston motors.
Yeah.
Like displacement, larger displacement?
Yeah, could you just physically double the size of everything now that almost every part of that motor that hasn't been in production for a long time is just made third party, like blocks are made third party. Can you do that? What happens when you do that?
I think it's not far off. Mazda has a 1.6 liter. I mean, that's what they debuted in Japan a couple years ago. There's some boat motors and weird things, airplane motors that have been set up out there that are odd displacements. So it's been done. It just takes money. There's really nothing stopping anybody other than money, especially with modern CNC technology, and people are doing billet blocks anyways. It would just be right now, your 4-rotor or your aftermarket 3-rotor or your billet rotary motor. You're just using a billet case. You're still using, it'd be like buying a LS block that's billet and then filling it with OEM LS components. We're just hitting that point where the internals, like the Apex seals that I'm working on or now have available and other components are really getting out there. And that's, I think, due to the technology that's available now. So it has been a technology hurdle. Mazda did a really good job creating machinery that nobody else could have to make rotary components back when they did. It was just a matter of money. And now machinery is becoming more available. So yes, it's possible. Oh, been done. Guy in Florida has a 12-rotor boat motor. Yeah, and it's shaped like a V8 too. You got to look it up. 12-rotor boat motor.
12-rotor boat motor.
Yeah, it's a 4-rotor and then
big balls. Can you start digging on that?
2 4-rotors and then a 4-rotor down the bottom, or 2 3-rotors and a 3-rotor. It's awesome. Yeah.
That's insane.
So yeah, that's kind of like where it's going. And I think he put 2 of those in like an outboard off-road racing boat to get around the rules. But that's just endless money. Like that's when you aren't running the team as a family operation and having your dad as the spotter, your wife helping make decals. But as we progress, I'd love to see more sponsorship opportunity come in, because I think I definitely have the technology to make something like that.
I have a very a short answer, or some of this answer just in a few 2-3 sentences. Why did Mazda decide to do something crazy like creating a new motor? Like, what was the purpose of it? What's the thought of creating a motor?
So
if you know,
the Wankel, that was Felix Wankel, and he was a German guy. So it was actually thought to be at the time probably revolutionary. It's a very efficient air pump, if you think about what air pumps are. So Mercedes, the original Corvette concept, motorcycles, if you look at it, like all the manufacturers grabbed the rotary motor, and then the gas crunch hit in the 70s, and rotary motors aren't fuel economic. At least they're not that great at it. So that really affected it, but Mazda always believed in it, and other manufacturers did too, in the aspect of it makes good horsepower easily and is very happy running at sustained or high RPMs for a very long period of time. And by removing the percussion, basically of a piston moving up and down, you're taking away a lot of the load on that center shaft, which is considered an E shaft. So essentially everything's spinning on the center. So at the time, based on manufacturing, Mazda was able to make it very cheap. Gas was easy, so your motor components were very cheap, and it allowed Mazda to get into the small sports car arena with something very unique and very powerful. And then if you look at the racing history, they eventually won Le Mans with it and were outlawed. And if you look at the rotary motor throughout racing, whether it's a misunderstanding of it, a misunderstanding of the displacement of it, it's very hard to find series that allow the rotary motor, and it's hard to classify it against piston motors. There's always a debate: is a 1.3 liter closer to an inline 4 or an inline 6? Is a 3-rotor an inline 6 or a V8? Comparatively, and I think with modern technology, aside from the torque, we're approaching more on the upper end. But Mazda just saw it. They had one engineer that was very adamant about it being the future, and they stuck behind it for many years. It won him a championship, or won him a Le Mans race, and kind of made him historic in the automotive manufacturer world. Right now they don't make one, but they did debut one, I think 4 years ago at Tokyo Auto Salon, so it's still part of it. And if you look online and you're adamant about it, you can find airplane manufacturers, go-karts, quite a few things that are currently still using the rotary motor and the Wankel design as a functional engine. So, Mazda was just the only OE manufacturer to ever put it into production. And the reason it's not currently in production, I believe, this is just me, is it's hard with the emissions end of it. You know.
There's rumors that
Awesome.
they're developing a new Wankel engine, so
Yeah.
we'll see if that really happens.
Yeah, that's what they debuted, I think, or a variation of it in Tokyo. And I heard rumors of 30 to 40 miles per gallon and 1.6 liters versus 1.3. So it's kind of along that ideas of stretching the block, but then they haven't put it into a car. So we're just kind of waiting on the performance side to see what happens with this potentially all aluminum block. Direct injection. I think they were even talking laser ignition, but hadn't worked it out yet. And definitely higher displacement. Better
Laser
mileage.
ignition.
Yeah, laser ignition, something.
Sick.
That's science stuff. Do you want to know
science.
what I know about? This is what I know about Wankels. Vanilla Ice's real name is Rob Van Wankel. Just throwing that out there. I don't know if you guys know that, but
Super
that's
Yeah.
interesting.
that's for the knowledge. I got a question here. This is another Instagram question. This has come from Bananas Are Us, and it goes, "How often do you call Jeff Jones before bed to say goodnight? And does he get jealous when he sees you talking to other drivers?"
At least a couple times a week, and I'd say yeah, but only when it's just before we're going out to qualifying. You know, that's the
Right.
private time right there. Yeah, he's a little scruffy, I have to say that. He's a
He
shame.
is a little rough around the edges,
little
but
rough
that's what
around the
makes that's just what makes him so
That's what makes
so
him
sweet.
special.
I mean, we got to make sure we're coordinated on the clothes when we're showing up to the Formula D drivers meetings. It's important.
Here's another question. This is from Throat Punch 4. He wants to know, why did your tires stick out so far in the front on the Miata or the MX-5? Sorry.
That's a good question. So when we debuted that car, just like Mad Mike, we used the same chassis and the same Wisefab suspension, which really wasn't meant to be on that car. So actually Mad Mike's front tires stuck out exactly the same. But less people talked about it. And I think it was also because we ran our car lower that we couldn't get the tire under there. And everybody always complained that I ran the RX-8 too high, so I ran the MX-5 lower, and everybody complained about the tire fitment. And then when we made fenders for it, everybody complained about the fenders. So
Well, if
I
you didn't notice, everyone complains always.
I think
yeah, so that was going to be my point. But the actual reason is nobody made anything for it. And if you actually look at most aftermarket body kits, they don't cover modern Formula D fenders. So most of the things that look like body kits in Formula D are actually modified. You know, I'm not going to name specific company or drivers, but they look like rocket bunnies, but they've actually been widened in the front so that they don't stick out. So, you know, I think the necessity for angle combined with what the street component look is doesn't really always match with what Formula D has to have. So in our case, I didn't have time to make fenders. Nobody did make fenders. And hiring somebody to make fenders is actually really challenging and expensive. So it took us a year to make fenders and get them on the car. You know? And I actually did hire 2 different companies to make me fenders, and both of them flaked out, and one of them was a sponsor, so that would constitute a bad sponsor. Somebody who promised you something
Good answer.
And
You
then-
brought it back. You brought it back.
does not deliver it, and then I show up at Formula D, and everybody asks, why do your fenders stick out? And it really is because 2 companies failed to make me fenders.
Paco, do you know
The last
anyone?
year, I made my own fenders.
Good.
Yeah.
Good answer. Brilliant.
Do you know anyone who makes fenders?
there's these guys here in Arizona called 2F Performance.
Have you heard of 2F?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah,
can,
yeah.
I can get you in
They're
touch with them.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you
Well,
want.
here's the thing. So how many people are making Drift MX-5s?
Nobody.
Yeah, so how much is that going to... You going to pay for that?
All of them. You're gonna pay for it.
No, I'm not even running that
You're
car
gonna pay
anymore.
for it. You're gonna pay for it.
So that's what my crew always says.
Yeah.
And I'm
I
like,
thought-
guys, we actually do have a budget we have to work with here. I'm
I
sorry.
thought we were gonna get paid for it,
Yeah, right?
which I guess Paco
Yeah,
would
so-
by
but
definition.
that's the real reasons. Nobody made fenders. Then the companies I partnered with flaked, and then we finally made our own fenders. Yeah. Blame Wisefab.
Yeah, making them too wide.
Making them too
Fuck no.
wide. Yeah.
Any
Mark, do you have any questions?
grammars or Facebookers or YouTubers stand out to you questions wise?
I have one last one probably, and
Okay.
more than a question. This is from Formula Dread, Luke Kroll. He's saying, let's give a big hug from all of us in the drift world for the loss of his friend and teammate, Matt Hill. So we heard the unfortunate news, and obviously from all of us at Driftcast and pretty much everybody in the drift community, we'll give you a big hug, and just move on and kick harder.
Yeah, we got to, of course, recognize one of our own. That was actually my next topic of conversations. That breaks the ice better, but it's definitely important in our tight-knit community to recognize someone who has had a very big part in it. And I remember meeting Matt in an elevator many years ago, and I remember he immediately talked shit to me, which is something about his personality that I think should be remembered, because he was a valuable member of your team, and he will be missed in the community. So everyone, as you're listening to this, remember Matt, because he was part of our world.
I appreciate that, guys, and it's honestly still really hard for me to talk about. He was a really close friend for many years, even before we partnered on the Formula Drift program. And through the years that we were partnered, he was a great friend and a valuable team member. So all I can say is this year, obviously, the stuff he made is on the cars, and we're going to be kicking ass for him and everybody else that has put in the effort. So, definitely, I think he made impressions around the world and around the country, as I've had this amazing stream of people sending condolences, and that has helped me out, because for anybody who's lost a close friend in some sort of tragic way, it's a difficult thing. It's when you don't expect it. So I appreciate that, and he was a real good dude. So he talked so much shit. Like, if anybody, I mean, oh my god,
which I respect the hell out of,
and he owned up to it too. Like, he always said, he's like, yep, I do. I talk a lot of shit. So definitely thank you guys on that. I don't want to say too much more. So.
Yeah, of course, but that's the beauty of these things, is that after the initial tragedy of the loss, we can then remember. We can really refine these people into everything they stood for, and he was one of those dudes that really helped the community grow. He helped your team grow, and as someone that I can respect as a personal shit talker myself, from shit talker to shit talker. Bless you, Matt. Thank you.
Absolutely. Miss you, buddy. A lot.
All right, Kyle, any other final things you want to say to friends, to fans, to sponsors? You missed a couple earlier. You mentioned like 7 out of 10 sponsors, and I'm sure that those other 3 sponsors are going to call you tomorrow,
or even exit out on what we should be expecting out of you this year. I think that's it, is getting people excited of what you're bringing, because you've always been stepping up. After Atlanta, you did this amazing thing in Atlanta. Drop it on us.
So, I mean, we have a lot of our partners coming in from last year. So, American Ethanol, Top One, Exity, Haltech, Mazda Tricks, Thunderbolt Race Fuels. I should look at the sheet. Mothers, Baker, CX, HGT Transmission, Radium. They've been with us for a long time, helping us out a bunch up in Seattle, Oregon. Super cool. WP Pro, Mishimoto, Rap Legends, Turbonetics, Precision Turbos. I'm gonna make sure I get them all here. NGK Spark Plugs. Yeah.
You're more prepared than most people on the show. They usually don't know.
Yeah, no. Like, most of these guys right here, like, I have to say, like, the majority of these companies, I've been with them more than a couple years, and I feel like they're friends. They're people that they hit me up when they need something on the rotary side, or they need something that I can help with, and vice versa. They help me out with the car. And as advice for upcoming pro drivers, people often ask, what does it take? Well, it takes loyalty to the fans, it takes loyalty to the series, and obviously loyalty to sponsors. Otherwise, you will not get to enjoy what we all get to enjoy. So shout out to all of them. And then on the other side, follow me on YouTube. Yeah, I'm doing YouTube stuff.
That is awesome, dude.
Yeah, drifting.com is helping me with a lot of tutorial videos. Wisdom Productions is coming back out with me and Jeff Jones. We're going to be bringing the humor this year. And then a lot of
your channel name?
Nothing on Top One.
What's
Kyle Mohan. Kyle Mohan Racing.
Kyle MZ.
Yeah, I got to make something better, but it's just me. It's all me. Shops Kyle Mohan Racing. Teams Kyle Mohan Racing. I don't know. I was not creative when I put it all together back in the day. So,
No, it works.
but,
I mean, it's you
But,
obviously love talking about your passion, and anyone that is interested in the rotary world should definitely follow you guys. So
yeah, so check that out. Obviously, Instagram for the highlights, and obviously Facebook. I try to post up galleries and events and that stuff too. So say what's up. I'm a guy. I'll definitely say hi, and if for some reason I don't respond, don't think it's because I didn't want to. It's probably because I was busy. Just hit me up again. So
yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Awesome,
always down to
dude.
help people. Yeah, thank you guys.
And
Get
what
that high five
what number
game.
year is this in Formula Drift for you?
I don't know. I mean, technically,
It's been too many.
Yeah, technically, I mean, if we go with the years that I only ran like the one round or
Doesn't matter, you're
some
still
spot
there.
events, then yeah, I've been involved in the series every year. So
So
yeah,
Awesome, dude.
what year are we
veteran.
on?
Yeah, what year are we on?
16.
16,
17,
yes, whatever.
18.
Yeah.
Well, good luck on your
yeah.
25th year of Formula Drift. We can't wait to see you in Long Beach in literally a month.
Yeah.
You're about a month away from Long Beach, so get
Cool.
ready, everyone. It's about to go down.
And final shout out my crew, my family, my wife, my dad, my mom, obviously the fallen members, and then the current members. They've been holding it together. The Codys, the Royces, and some of the old guys. Merv, like I just can't even say enough to the people who have been in my shop the past week, helping me through the difficult time and making sure that we actually didn't lose progress. So apologize if I'm missing anybody, but KMR team, you are extremely appreciated, and you know who you are.
Awesome.
Yeah. Your
Good
family.
shit.
Well, thank you for
Awesome, man.
spending the extra time
Yeah.
on our show and taking the time in the first place. Hopefully, it's not another 3 years before we get you on. But
Well, aside from what I thought about talking with Corey, this was actually a really good time. So, no, you guys are great. And
take that, Corey, you idiot.
I think
God.
the real reason is I actually do work 2 full-time jobs, running
Yeah.
the shop and then coaching. To put it all together, I just have very little downtime, and I'll try to make more time to come hang out with you guys.
No, it's all good.
No, absolutely,
Well,
man.
We'll
Super
talk to
stoked
you
on it.
after your next podium this season, and anytime soon that you want to talk, we'll be there.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Later, babe.
See you,
Thank you
buddy.
so much. Hang up on
And
this motherfucker. Hang up on
Know how to.
all right, let's see. I think he pulled the plug.
No, he hit the wrong button.
Hit the
He
wrong
did a
button.
dramatic button
There
push.
you
It didn't
go.
push.
There it
Alright.
is.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Kyle Mohan.
Finally, after 3
first
years
time
of
after 3
trying to talk
years.
to Kyle Mohan, I think he is literally the only Pro 1 driver that's been in the sport in the past few years that we haven't spoken to. So it's good to get that out of the way. We can finally end the show once and for all. So this is the last one forever.
Yep, that's it. We are at 138, I believe.
Episodes?
Yeah. How
That's pretty good.
did we manage to go this far?
I don't know. I'm
Well,
tired.
you know what they say? They say save the best for last, guys. And
Oh.
we couldn't get Jin,
Yeah.
Kyle. We couldn't get Kenny Mohan, so we got his brother Kyle. And
Yeah,
that's right.
That's what being special is all about.
Hey, I forgot. Did he give out his MySpace account? I was going to check his MySpace.
Yeah, he's got a sick SoundCloud actually. So
Oh, is
he mentioned that he had 2 jobs. He forgot to mention his 3rd job, which is SoundCloud rapper. You can find him on
Yeah.
the boardwalk, handing out CDs really aggressively, putting them in your
Yeah.
hands, being like, "Hey, listen to this."
$6.
And then he asked for like 25, which is crazy.
Whoa, that's pretty steep.
His flows are good, but they're not like $8 maybe. That's max. Boys, any other things that we
Well,
missed that you
we have
want
to
to talk about?
We have to give thanks.
Yeah.
You want to start, Corey?
We got to give thanks to some of our dearest friends. We got to give thanks to the AM intakes of the world.
Duh.
If you want your car to suck harder than it's ever sucked before, and you want that sucking to turn into power, get a good old AM intake system, because that thing will make you make some smoke out of them rear tires that you put on your car, dude, brother.
Dude, brother.
Dude, bro. That's
I
the new
evolved.
slogan.
That was called the Hulk Hogan evolution phase, and that's what I just did.
That's a new slogan for AM. Dude, brother.
Yeah. Put it on your car, dude, bro.
It is
Yeah.
weird that early on in this whole Drift Idiot thing that I did is my slogan that I came up with was suck less, because I was trying to suck less. And now here we are many years down the road and we're
Sucking
sucking more
Oh,
with
God,
AM
no.
intakes.
Yeah. Oh, well.
Yeah, solid.
We'll get over it.
Oh, well, that's showbiz, baby.
Yeah.
That's showbiz, baby. Who else, Pac? What do you got?
Then we have Link ECU.
Ooh, that's a good one. I wish we had a reggae horn.
Wait, did you say Link EC? Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
More like
And that's how to
Link
pronounce
EC.
it.
Yeah,
Probably.
so that's the thing. The cool thing with Link, we're going to be talking with them soon. We're going to be speaking with Jason over at Link. We're going to be doing some Link ECU giveaways.
Do you guys want to make your car work?
Yeah, do you want to make a little
will
more
help.
juice? These
Or
little
it just
control
worked in
boxes.
the first place. You got that motor swap and you put the new motor in your car. You try
No,
to
so-
fire it up, and you're like, "What the fuck's wrong with this car?" And then
So
all
let
of
me
a
tell
sudden
you
realize
this.
I
Let
don't
me
have
tell you this.
ECU in the car.
That's
Oh,
why.
I need a computer.
Yeah.
So we, the PSI, the Link team is working on trying to get some product in the hands of some grassroots drivers,
Mhm.
and we're working with them to help facilitate that migration from pro back down to grassroots and getting Link in the hands of most of you guys. So they're gonna want to hear your story. You know, at one point they're gonna want to share their knowledge with you guys, but they also want to hear your story on what's your goals, what you're doing, what's your car build, and they want to get involved with people who are interested in taking the sport seriously, and they want to make investments now to start getting people while they're growing up, which I think in most sports, you know, you look at basketball and football and golf, you get people coming out of the amateur series and work
The
with them
big
all the way.
three: basketball, football, and golf.
Yeah, the big three. Well, yeah, once we get a couple million views on major networks, Sam, then I'll consider drifting one.
No,
Uh,
I mean the next one I think of is like baseball,
Yeah, well,
hockey.
I don't know. For some reason, I don't know if I spend too much time on ESPN. I would say UFC. I watch more
Yeah.
fighting than I do anything else.
You a
But,
fighter yourself? Do you do a lot of fighting?
yeah, I fight to kind of go to bed and get up every morning.
I feel like you were kind of the kid that got fought. You didn't do a lot of fighting though.
I've only gone to fight twice.
Can I hear about it?
One was in my front yard at my dad's house.
What happened?
With my best friend's brother.
Okay,
I don't
how old
know.
were you?
I was probably like 13 or 14.
Okay, I
It
had
was-
to go down.
The best part was I don't know if it started with a couple pushes, but we swung at the same time and gave each other both bloody noses at the same time, which was like,
No way.
yeah, I swear to God. So we both had bloody noses at
Do
the
you
same time.
remember what it was about?
No, I don't. But I remember we got bloody noses and we were both crying. So I think it ended in a draw. So I'm still
Okay.
undefeated. I was also, here's another fun fact,
Yeah, what-
Sam. I wrestled in high school. I told you that, right?
Yeah, ultra heavyweight.
No, I'll wrestle you right now, Sam.
Yeah, I'd like to see.
No, no, I wrestled in junior high and I went the full season defeated. I did 13 fights and I was defeated all year.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Were you like how big were you at the point? Were you fighting big kids?
I was like 150, 160.
Yeah, so as a 7th grader, that's pretty big.
Yeah, so I got worked really hard in wrestling.
I actually did wrestling in middle school too, and I was also bad at it.
Did you? I was actually traumatized one time because I showed up in my singlet and some kid goes, "Hey, did somebody drop an M&M in the front of your singlet?" And I was like, "What?" And I looked down.
That's pretty good.
Isn't
Good
that
on that
jacked up? And then I got
Yeah.
out of wrestling because I was mentally scarred by somebody laughing at my M&M.
Yeah, I felt like I wanted to do something that was like more contact sporty at the time, and yeah, for some reason I thought wrestling in like 7th grade was a good idea. And then I got my face smashed in the mat by a fat kid, and then I was like
Nice.
really bummed out by it.
Yeah, there's my wrestling career.
Could I maybe get into a bunch of like acoustic guitar music and reading instead? And then here we are.
I wish yoga existed back then because I would have been gone
Yeah.
to that 7th.
Oh, seventh grade, athletic yoga. Boy, I would have liked that. Your whole life would be different, I imagine. You'd be healthier, happier, more flexible.
For sure.
Paco, what kind of yoga do you do?
It's called sweaty yoga or something like that. Is that the one that's hot?
Okay.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
sweaty yoga. That's what
sweaty,
it's called.
Yeah, it's like a very official name, sweaty yoga.
Mhm.
And I always get like the old lady who farts in front of me.
Oh, in your face, yeah.
Yeah, that's like.
That's why you always show up the next day after yoga with pink eye. It makes total sense.
Oh, dude, now just put two and
Paco
two
shows
together.
up with double pink eye.
Oh,
Do
I
you
get it.
remember when I had double pink eye over Christmas because I was at Brett's house?
Yep.
It wasn't pink eye. It was like a regular old eye infection. But thanks, Brett. Appreciate it, bud. Hope you still listening to my show. You're my best friend, so I hope you do. If not, then Brett will never know that he gave me double pink eye. I don't mean physically he gave it to me, but his house gave it to me.
That was
Sean
very
V
old
on
house.
YouTube says the new segment on the show called High School Lane.
high school lane.
Yeah, we should end the show with high school memories.
Here's one more for you then,
Okay.
Sean. I had a fishnet T-shirt, not a T-shirt, it's a long sleeve that
Okay.
I once wore a Metallica shirt underneath because my heart has always been metal. I just didn't know how to show it at the time.
That was a goth. That's more metal goth.
You
What do
ever-
you listen to?
you ever
That's the
did-
thing though too is that my metal friends made fun of me. And the
You ever
goth
did
kids
black
hated it,
nails?
so it's-
Black fingernails?
No, I never painted nails. Thankfully.
Dude, that's what was
Um,
missing.
I'll tell you a quick one too. So I used to have a bowl cut in like 8th grade, and I was at
still
my
do.
grandma's house. I'm like, man, I want to get my bowl cut trimmed up. You know, that's where you shave underneath each side, and you had long hair on top.
Yeah.
And I remember my grandma was cutting my hair, and I felt the razor go, "Ah," and she's like, "Oh, it's all done." And then I went to school and I was like, "Man, what the fuck's up with the back hair?" She made about one stripe up, and the clippers broke. So I went the full day.
Which is crazy that literally happened 15 years later at the first
15
FD
years later.
Texas. At Fantastic Sam's or Great Clips,
Mhm.
whatever it was, at
Yeah.
FD Texas, and you got the worst haircut that anyone's ever seen. And we've talked about it many times in the show, but if you're a new listener, I don't know.
I'll find that picture.
I'll describe it for a second, but what did you
Okay.
ask for?
Uh,
Before I
I
describe
just-
what it actually looked like, what did you
I-
ask for?
Well, I had at the time I had like a little tiny faux hawk, which wasn't
Yeah.
much. It was just like a little tiny faux hawk. And
Yeah.
I was like, if we're gonna do media day and do photos and stuff, I'm gonna get my hair cut. But I didn't get it done here in Phoenix. I got it done when we were in Texas, which is probably
You got it
the
about
place
2
we went
miles
to. It's like 2-3
2
miles from the track.
next to the Walmart, and it was right before we got to the track. Corey's like, I need this. It's like Saturday morning, right before the main event. He went in. Dustin and I were waiting in the car. He was only gone for like 10 minutes, which is the best part. And he came back, and he had the most crooked rat tail situation I've ever saw. It was not symmetrical in the least. It was ridiculous. It
Nope.
was.
And we left it, didn't we, Sam? I said, you know what? Go back in
Yeah.
and fix it. You said no.
No,
It's meant to be. We made it meant to be.
That was
Paco,
the
what about
best
you? Do you have one high school sword in on Pac?
I
Well, we'll
did-
keep that going though. I like that.
I dyed my hair like platinum, and
Okay.
even my beard. I had like a platinum goatee. So
Okay.
I kind of look like the singer
Ain't
from
today.
The Offspring. 'Cause I
That
had,
guy was cool.
I had, like,
Dexter.
like Spike. Yep.
Dexter Holland. Yeah, that guy's
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah.
Have you ever
and-
pooped your pants in high school, Sam, or junior high?
No, it took me till an adult. I never. Well, I guess you can't say like a full-on poop, but one time I was on a lot of antibiotics. I was sick,
Huh?
and I was. I think I was playing probably like Battlefield 2, 3. I don't know. Which one it was. Maybe it was Bad Company. I don't know, but I was playing with my buds, and then I felt a large fart coming. And then I'll leave the rest of the story for your imaginations.
Everybody in Discord on your headset's like, Sam, what gun are you using?
Please press F. Press F to pay respects to my underwear.
Dude, I'm gonna hit F in chat right now.
F in chat, please.
so we're looking for new show sponsors. Thanks so much.
all right,
Oh yeah.
That's a
Anyway,
great
we also
story.
want to thank our Patreons.
Oh,
Patreons
100%.
Perfect.
The
These,
stories are for Patreon.
Perfect
These
segue to
stories
thank the
be real.
Patreons, by the way.
Do we have another goal coming up? Because we got to create one. Because we got to create a new
We got
milestone.
F's in chat.
Because the last milestone was Paco speaking an entire episode only in Spanish. Maybe we get Corey another Great Clips haircut.
Another bowl cut.
Yeah. Why not? Okay, let's see what the next goal is. Sam will not interrupt the co-host or guest the entire
Oh, it ain't
episode. And that's at
happening.
200.
I feel like I've done that. I feel like
I
I've
think-
done that before.
You've been, it's been really great.
It's been good. We gotta rephrase these ones. We'll come up with a couple ones. Please let us know. Either DM us or post it on the Kyle episode, or maybe we'll make a new post about Patreon goals. What should be the next goal? Because we gotta do something special here when we hit the next milestone. But thank you, Patreons. Always, you get special stuff. If you are a Patreon, you have first dibs for any special offers, any promotions we do, free shit, you name it. Patreons, you guys keep the show going. Otherwise, we would have quit long ago.
Absolutely.
And with that,
With that being said,
we'll see you next Tuesday. Maybe.
that's it. That's it for us. Good night, Corey. Good
Good night,
Sam.
Pac.
Good night, Brian.
Good night, Brian.
Good night,
And
Brian.
Good
Good night,
night,
Corey.
audience.
Good night, Sam. Go clean your underwear.
No, I'm fine
No,
now.
just throw it
Okay, good,
away.
good, good.
Set it on
Just
fire.
throw 'em away.
Okay.